Tano, waziri mmoja au wawili hufika mbele ya bunge la seneti, na kwa vile hawa maseneta wanatuwakilisha mimi na wewe kutoka kaunti mbalimbali, na kuomba ukae utulie, manake haya maswali yanakuhusu mimi na wewe. Kwa sasa mtazamaji, naomba nikufahamishe mawaziri ambao tunawatarajia asubuhi ya leo. Kumbuka tunawatarajia tu, lakini iwapo watafika hatujui. Iwapo watakosa kufika hatujui. Tusubiri tuone mambo yatakwenda namna gani. Waziri wa kwanza ambaye tunamtarajia ni waziri msimamizi ambaye pia anasimamia wizara ya masuala ya kigeni na masuala kuhusu Wakenya wanaoishi ughaibuni. Nazungumzia Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi. Waziri wa pili ambaye tunamtarajia ni waziri wa barabara na usafiri, Mheshimiwa Onesmus Murkomen, ambaye atakuwa hapa kujibu maswali kuhusiana na wizara yake ya barabara na usafiri. Na waziri wa tatu ambaye huenda afike mbele ya bunge la seneti ni Dr. Alfred Mutua, waziri wa utalii. Kisha huenda tuwe na waziri wa fedha Profesa Njuguna Ndung'u aje mbele ya bunge la seneti kujibu maswali kutoka kwa maseneta. Hawa wote kama nilivyokueleza watakumbana na maswali kutoka kwa maseneta kadhaa. Kwa hivyo wakati wa maswali tunatarajia Seneta Lomenen, Seneta Boni Khalwale, Seneta Murungi, Seneta Murango na wengine waulize maswali. Na kwa kawaida mimi hukueleza haya maswali yalitumwa kwa mawaziri zamani kidogo. Ina maana kwamba mawaziri wamekuwa na muda wa kutosha kupitia hayo maswali na kufanya utafiti. Kisha wanakuletea majibu mwafaka. Kwa hivyo mtazamaji, kaa tayari kusikia kutoka kwa waziri ambaye atafika mbele ya bunge la seneti asubuhi ya leo. Na nikirejelea ratiba ya shughuli, tunayo hoja hapo nambari 8. Hoja yenyewe inahusu hotuba ya rais ambayo ilitolewa mnamo Alhamisi wiki iliyopita. Anayekuletea hoja hii si mwingine ila kiongozi wa wengi katika bunge la seneti, anakwenda kwa jina la Senator Cheruiyot. Mjadala huu ulianza mnamo hapo jana na leo asubuhi maseneta wanatarajia kurejelea mjadala huu. Kisha katika ratiba nambari 9 ni hoja. Kamati ambayo inafuatilia kufidiwa kwa Wakenya ambao waliathirika kwa mkasa wa bomu wa mwaka wa 1998 inaomba kuongezwa muda zaidi ili wakamilishe kazi yao. Mwenyekiti wa kamati hii ambayo ilibuniwa mnamo tarehe 27 mwezi Juni mwaka 2023 anasema muda umekuwa mchache sana. Walianza kufanya kazi lakini muda ukamalizika kabla kazi kukamilika. Wakaongezwa muda wa siku 45 na wamekuwa wakifanya kazi. Sasa inaondokea kwamba hizo siku 45 zimefika kikomo. Zilifika kikomo tarehe 10 mwezi huu, lakini tena kazi haijakamilika. Kwa hivyo mwenyekiti anaomba bunge la seneti liwaongezee muda wa siku 100 zaidi ili wajaribu kadri ya uwezo wao kumalizia kazi na kufunganya virago. Naam, katika ratiba nambari 10 ni hoja. Hoja yenyewe inahusu kutangazwa kwa wizi wa mifugo kama janga la kitaifa na kuanzishwa kwa hazina ya waathiriwa wa wizi wa mifugo. Anayehusika na hoja hii si mwingine ila seneta wa Baringo, Seneta William Cheptumo. Seneta Cheptumo anasema anafahamu kwamba wizi wa mifugo ni tatizo kubwa mno katika maeneo ya kaskazini na kusini mwa bonde la Ufa na pia sehemu zingine nchini. Ni tatizo ambalo limeacha madhara makubwa katika sehemu hizi. Anasema kwamba kutokana na wizi wa mifugo, wanawake wamesalia wajane, watoto wamesalia mayatima na kuna wanaume wengi ambao wamesalia bila wake. Naam, mpenzi mtazamaji, kufikia hapo namuona spika wa muda wakili Sigei amefika katika bunge la seneti. Kwa hivyo ataomba kisha kikao rasmi cha bunge la seneti asubuhi ya leo kitaanza. Mimi ni wako Vusaka Litu, kwake spika wa muda.
God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that will come under deliberation just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interest you have committed to our church. Amen. Mr. Clerk, could you confirm whether we have quorum to commence the session today? Sergeant at Arms, please ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
Naam, spika wa muda Seneta wakili Sigei amewasili, ameomba, kisha amepata kwamba bunge la seneti halina akidi. Ndio kwa maana unasikia kengele inakirizwa, mtazamaji. Ameagiza kengele kukirizwa kwa muda wa dakika 10 ili bunge la seneti lipate akidi. Lakini nikirejelea ratiba ya shughuli za bunge la seneti asubuhi ya leo, nilikuwa nikikueleza kwamba Seneta wa Baringo, Seneta Cheptuma, anayo hoja. Inahusu kutangazwa kwa wizi wa mifugo kama janga la kitaifa na kuanzishwa kwa hazina ya waathiriwa wa wizi wa mifugo. Naam, anasema kwamba wizi wa mifugo hupelekea kusimamishwa kwa huduma zote. Ni kwa sababu kukiwa na wizi wa mifugo, hali inakuwa taharuki wala hakuna usalama. Kama ni masomo yanasitishwa, kama ni ukulima unasitishwa, kwa sababu madaktari hawezi fika kazini, wakulima hawezi fika shambani pasipo usalama. Naam, eti watu ambao wanaishi katika sehemu hizi, sehemu ambazo nilikutajia kaskazini mwa Kenya, wanaishia kukosa ama kunyimwa haki zao za kijamii, haki za kiuchumi na haki za kisiasa kwa sababu ya wizi wa mifugo. Kumbuka, hizi haki ni za kila Mkenya kulingana na katiba yetu. Kwa hivyo Seneta Cheptumo anaomba bunge la seneti kupitia wizara ya masuala ya ndani ya nchi na mipango ya kitaifa itangaze wizi wa mifugo kama janga la kitaifa. Anaomba wizara hiyo ya waziri Profesa Kindiki ibuni kamati maalum. Kazi ya kamati hiyo itakuwa kuchunguza kiini cha wizi wa mifugo na pia kubaini madhara yaliyotolewa na visa vya wizi wa mifugo katika jamii zilizoathirika. Hatimaye seneta wa Baringo anaitaka wizara ya Profesa Kindiki izindue hazina ya kuwafidia waathiriwa wa wizi wa mifugo na kuwapa makao mapya. Katika ratiba tunayo hoja katika nambari 11, inahusu kutwaliwa kwa mali ya watu ambao wanakosa kulipa mikopo kutoka kwa taasisi mbalimbali za kukopesha pesa. Anayehusika na hoja hii si mwingine ila Seneta Wahome wa Matinga. Katika ratiba pia shughuli nambari 12 ni hoja yake Seneta Crystal Asige. Inahusu siku ya kutotumia magari kila mwezi na maeneo ambapo magari hayataruhusiwa. Seneta Asige anasema anaelewa fika kwamba Wakenya wana haki ya kuwa na mazingira safi na yenye afya. Hii ni kwa mujibu wa kipengee 42 cha katiba yetu. Seneta Sige pia anaelewa usafiri, yani transportation, ndio mojawapo ya vitu ambavyo vinachangia pakubwa kwa uchafuzi wa mazingira. Na ni kweli kwamba tumeshuhudia ongezeko la magari ya kibinafsi katika barabara zetu humu nchini. Anasema pasipo kudhibiti hali hii, ni wazi kwamba uchafuzi wa mazingira utazidi na hali ya hewa itazidi kudorora zaidi. Anasema hali hii itawadhuru Wakenya wengi pakubwa. Kwa hivyo Seneta Asige anaiomba Wizara ya Barabara na Usafiri ishirikiane na Baraza la Magavana na pia Baraza la Kitaifa kuhusiana na mabadiliko ya hali ya anga ili wachukue hatua kadha wa kadha. Akipewa nafasi utapata kusikia mengi zaidi kuhusu hoja hiyo kutoka kwa Seneta Crystal Asige. Naam, wakati wa maswali, Senator James Lomenen wa Turkana County ana maswali kwa waziri msimamizi ambaye pia ni waziri ambaye pia anasimamia Wizara ya Masuala ya Nje na Wakenya wanaoishi ughaibuni, samahani. Nazungumzia Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi. Senator Lomenen anaomba kujua ni sababu gani serikali yetu haijashughulika kusaidia wafugaji wa kuhamahama kutoka kaunti ya Turkana ambao walitiwa mbaroni nchini Uganda. Wafugaji inasemekana walivuka hadi kata ya Moroto kule Uganda wakiwa katika shughuli ya kutafuta malisho kwa mifugo wao. Askari wa Uganda wakawatia mbaroni na hata kuwafikisha mahakamani nchini Uganda. Inasemekana tangu mwaka jana hadi sasa hawa Wakenya wanazuiliwa nchini Uganda. Kisha Senator Lomenen anauliza ni lini ambapo serikali itaingilia kati ili kuona kwamba Wakenya hawa wameachiliwa. Kengele bado inakirizwa, mpenzi mtazamaji, ina maana kwamba bunge la seneti halijapata akidi. Hivyo basi nazidi kusonga mbele. Tunamtarajia Waziri Murkomen, waziri wa barabara na usafiri, naye atakabiliana na maswali kutoka kwa Seneta Mwenda Gataya Mofaya, seneta wa Tharaka Nithi County. Huyu seneta anaomba kujua ni kwa nini ujenzi wa barabara ya kutoka Kajiunduthi hadi Marima imesimama. Ujenzi wa barabara umesimama. Barabara yenyewe inatakiwa kupitia Iriga kwenda Chogoria, kufika Weru, Mutindwa, Kiriaini na hatimaye kumalizikia sehemu ambayo inaitwa Marima. Seneta Gataya Mofaya analalamika kwamba ujenzi wenyewe ulianza mwaka wa 2016. Miaka 5 baadaye ujenzi huu haujakamilika. Ni kwa nini? Wizara ya Mheshimiwa Murkomen inachukua hatua gani kuona kwamba ujenzi wa barabara hii unakamilika? Hili ni ombi la Seneta Gataya Mofaya ambaye pia anamtaka Waziri Murkomen atoe makataa, yani deadline ya kurudia ujenzi wa barabara hii. Hatimaye Seneta Gataya Mofaya anasema barabara katika sehemu fulani hazipitiki. Sehemu zenyewe anazitaja ni pamoja na Gitumbani, Mutindwa, sehemu ambayo inaitwa Gantwaki, Kajiunduthi, Kiriaini na Marima. Anaomba kujua hatua ambazo Waziri Murkomen anachukua ili kuhakikisha hizo barabara zinapitika. Ije jua, ije mvua. Yaani katika misimu yote barabara zipitike. Wizara ya Waziri Murkomen inachukua hatua gani? Samahani, sio seneta bali Waziri Murkomen pia anatarajiwa kujibu maswali kutoka kwa Senator Peris Tobiko. Senator Tobiko anasema barabara ya Imaroro kuelekea Isara katika kaunti ya Kajiado haina matuta, yani bumps, ya kudhibiti kasi ya magari. Anasema kwamba matuta yanahitajika katika maeneo yenye soko, karibu na shule na pia kwenye daraja. Kwa sababu hakuna matuta, ajali za barabarani zimekuwa nyingi mno. Kwa hivyo Senator Peris Tobiko anauliza, je, kuna mipango yoyote ya kuweka matuta katika barabara hiyo? Ndilo swali ambalo Senator Tobiko anamwelekezea Waziri Murkomen. Swali lingine ni je, Wizara ya Barabara na Usafiri ina mipango ya kuboresha barabara ya Isinya kuelekea Konza? Iwapo hiyo mipango ipo, itaanza lini? Senator James Murango wa kaunti ya Kirinyaga ni mwingine ambaye ana maswali kwa Waziri Murkomen. Anauliza, je, wanakandarasi ambao wamepewa tenda ya ujenzi wa barabara katika kaunti ya Kirinyaga wamefanya miradi gani ya kijamii, yani corporate social responsibility? Senator Murango anaomba kwamba wanakandarasi hao kupitia Wizara ya Elimu wafanye jitihada kuboresha miundombinu katika shule moja ya msingi na pia shule moja ya sekondari. Swali lingine ni kuhusu ujenzi wa barabara inayotoka Mururi kuelekea sehemu ambayo inaitwa Kiumbu. Barabara hii inapitia Uramandi, Ngushui, Mahigaini, Nyamindi, Kianugu na hatimaye kumalizikia sehemu ambayo inaitwa Kiumbu. Seneta Murango anataka kujua ni kwa nini ujenzi haujaanza ilhali mwanakandarasi alikwisha pewa tenda. Na tukisalia katika masuala ya barabara hiyo, Seneta Murango anaomba kujua hali iko namna gani kuhusu tenda hiyo ambayo imechelewa kuanza. Zaidi ni kwamba serikali kupitia Wizara ya Barabara na Ujenzi inachukua hatua gani kuona kwamba ujenzi huu unaanza mara moja, na mwanakandarasi atachukua muda gani kukamilisha kazi ambayo amepewa. Akidi tunayo hatuna? Tumepata akidi, kwa hivyo kikao rasmi cha bunge la Seneti kianze. Asante.
Senator Boni Halwale. Senator Boni. Senator Boni. Senator Boni Halwale. Please resume your seats. Thank you. Clerk. Proceed.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion.
Honorable members, the motion on the extension of the mandate of the ad hoc committee on the compensation of the Kenya victims of the 1998 bombing of the United States of America Embassy in Nairobi. This is Senator Kavindu's motion. Any member to that particular committee? Clerk, we can defer this. Let's call the next order. For purposes of proceeding, honorable members, we will rearrange the order paper because we have one cabinet secretary present. Right now, we will rearrange the order paper so that we can proceed. I'm informed that the cabinet secretary for tourism is present. Very well, you present for the, okay, fine. I am informed that the cabinet secretary for tourism is present. Once we are done with that motion that Senator Chute will do on behalf of Senator Kavindu, we will rearrange the order paper so that we can deal with the questions to the CS who is present in the chamber already. Senator Chute, take the floor.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. This is, Honorable Speaker, is a notice of motion, extension of the mandate of the ad hoc committee on the compensation to the Kenya victims of the 1998 bombing on the United States of America Embassy in Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that aware that the sitting of the Senate held on Thursday, 27th June 2023, the Senate resolves to establish an ad hoc committee to investigate the compensation to the Kenya victims of 1998 bombing of the United States of America Embassy in Nairobi, and report back to the House within 3 months of its establishment. Realizing that the extension period of 45 days of the tenure of ad hoc committee elapsed on 10th November 2023, yet the committee has a lot of work to execute to conclude in conducting the inquiry. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves to renew the mandate of ad hoc committee for a further period of 1 100 days from 10th November 2023 to enable the committee to finalize and table its report in the Senate on or before 18 February 2024. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Chute, you have not called out someone to second your motion. That's not Clerk.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Honorable members, I am informed, as earlier on stated, that we have the Cabinet Secretary for Tourism present in the chamber, and we will begin with that. I believe is being ushered in. And the question is by the Honorable Senator James Murango, MP from Kirinyaga County. Senator James Murango, I believe he has delegated the question to someone else. That's question number 57 on the order paper. Honorable CS, welcome to the Senate together with your team. And I would like to appreciate you for taking your time to respond to our invitation to answer two questions. This, remember, is part of the mandate of this House in order to ensure that Kenyans are actually delivered for the services by the relevant ministries. And in this particular case, we have one question by Senator James Murango from Kirinyaga County. But Senator Omatinga, you proceed to answer the question to the Honorable CS.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I am holding brief for Senator Murango, Kirinyaga County. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide a report to all cases of human-wildlife conflict from Kirinyaga Central Constituency in Kirinyaga County? And B, when will the defective electric fence which allows wild animals from Mount Kenya Forest to cross over into Kiandaka, Giatatha, and Kwaeriot villages in Kirinyaga County, where they attack people and destroy property, be repaired? And C, when will the government pay compensation for the loss of wildlife, injuries, and property damages resulting from the human-wildlife conflicts in Kirinyaga Central Constituency? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Omatinga. Honorable CS, I will invite you to respond to the question, and thereafter, if there are any additional or supplementary questions from members, you will also be at liberty to do so. I am aware, and I want to acknowledge the fact that you already received your written response, and therefore I believe your response will be within the context of your response, and additional info where necessary will be provided. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, honorable members, and I'm very happy to be here. It's first time I'm coming to the Senate to answer a question as the Minister for Tourism and Wildlife, and I think it's a very, very important forum. For the first question, I'd like to respond as following: that from January 2013 to date, a total of 14 human-wildlife conflict cases have been reported to KWS as indicated in the attached Table 1. All the incidences were attended, damage assessed, and compensation claims forms issued, awaiting their recommendation for payment by the Kirinyaga Community Wildlife Conservation Committee. And Mr. Speaker, it's attached there, Table 1, with the 14 various names and various incidents. For the second question, Mr. Speaker, about the defective electric fence, I'd like to respond as follows: that Kenya Wildlife Service has procured 2 battery and a solar panel in the process of fixing them, to enhance enough voltage along the affected fence line. However, vandalism of the electric fence has been the main challenge. The fence has been effective in managing wildlife encroachment up until July 2023, when the Gikumbo battery and solar panel were stolen by some members of the public. The last question about the payment of compensation for loss of life, injuries, and property damage, I reply as follows. In the current human-wildlife conflict compensation disbursement, 17 individuals from Kirinyaga County have been benefited from allocated funds of 1.44500 million, that is 1.4 million shillings, and these are as indicated in an attached file. Another 7 members who are not in the list, comprising of 3 human injuries, 3 crop destruction, 1 property damage, have also been approved at a value of another 1.418 million and will be funded as indicated also in table 3. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS, I thank you for your concise response to those particular questions. I will allow, as the tradition of this House, Senator Wamatinga, if you have any supplementary question to the Honorable CS, it is your opportunity to ask for the CS to respond. Thereafter, I will allow honorable members with supplementary questions, and in particular related to the question, the primary question that the Honorable CS had been invited to respond to this morning. So, Senator Wamatinga, you may ask your supplementary question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I would wish to give the colleagues a chance to ask the questions, then I'll ask mine towards the end. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, Senator Wambua Enoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. The CS said that it's the first time for him to appear before the Senate to engage in this manner. And it is my first time to engage with a CS after the court ruling the other day. So, Mr. Speaker, I'll beg your indulgence if I'm off the track. You know, we are just learning these things.
Senator Wambua,
Mr. Speaker,
I've guided you accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Your questions supplementary to the CS should be in the confines of the primary question that came, but that does not mean that you also do not inquire what the CS can be able to respond to you this morning.
The Speaker, the beauty of it is that you're dealing with a very fast learner. I'm guided.
Thank you.
The Speaker, on the matter of human-wildlife conflict, it's actually a shame that 60 years after independence, we are still grappling with the basics of the issue of human-wildlife conflict. The Speaker, I have a case in point. 2 weeks ago, in a ward called Daraka in Kitui County, we lost a schoolgirl to a snake bite. Now, the agony of the loss is that she was bitten by a black mamba. And in the list of the animals which would attract compensation from government, black mamba is not listed. So in essence, that girl is just lost, and that is it. There's nothing we can do about that. We have a lot of black mambas in Kitui, and they are very, very aggressive snakes. Our people are dying out of snake bites from black mamba, but the excuse given by KWS and the government is that there is no provision for compensation if you're bitten by a black mamba. What is the ministry doing to address this issue? And lastly, the Speaker, Because I saw the CS the other day, he was in my county helping with planting of trees. The bigger the vegetation, the more the investigation by black mambas. So after he has done something that will attract more black mambas in Kitui, what are they going to do to ensure that then our people, if they are beaten by that snake, they are compensated? So Speaker, I think I've done well for the first time. I thank you.
Very well, you have. I wanted to remind you that you are only entitled to ask one question. I thought your second bit was a question, but as you said, your first learner, the first question will be dealt with by the CS. Now, honorable members and CS, I've got a good number of members who wants to ask questions. I'll ask that we take 3 questions so that you answer them in sequence rather than taking on and off. So I will invite Senator Mundigi Alex Munyi.
Bwana Spika, swali yangu kwa Cabinet Secretary, katika Embu County kuna game reserve inaitwa Mwea Game Reserve. Iko na ndovu 200 karibu na 50. Wakati wa kiangazi pale kuna mtu anaitwa Dhipa, silifuka ikaenda Mafuria Ward, na hizi zingine ikaenda Mwea Ward, na hizi zingine ikawa hiyo Makema Ward. Na wakati wananchi walipiga kelele, hakuna kazi yoyote ilifanyika kwa sababu wale game reserves walisema hakuna mahali hizo ndovu zitapelekwa mpaka wangoje waamrishwe. Ikaa karibu miezi 2, miezi 3 na ikasumbua watu sana. Nilikuwa naomba Bwana Waziri, ni hatua gani utasukua ndio mvua ikipungua ndio isiweze kwenda kusumbua watu tena, kwa sababu Pandai ilikuja ikasukura na magari ikapelekwa. Kwa hiyo nakuuliza Bwana Waziri, ndio hiyo mambo isifanyike katika Embu County mbele South, utasukua hatua gani ndio kitu kama hiyo isifanyike? Na pia hapo hakuna hata simba hata moja kwa hiyo game reserve. Asante Bwana Waziri.
Thank you, Senator Mundigi. I want to ask Senator Manzo, Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I had brought a request of statement much earlier in relation to wildlife conflict in Makueni. Recently, the minister visited Masonga Leni, and as soon as he left, the elephants attacked people. I want to ask him, what is he doing about the conservancies, which are neighboring Makueni County, and are actually illegal conservancies, which have not been approved by KWS, and they are the ones which are allowing animals to cross to Kibwezi East and Makueni generally to terrorize people. And in fact, quite a number of people have died. What is he doing about their compensation? The people, the injuries, and the food which has been destroyed, the crops. And finally, in relation to the same, you promised to extend the fence within a month. When are you going to do this? Because the month is over and there's no effort. And from my knowledge of government and parliament, there has to be a budget before you extend the fencing. Where is that budget and how much is it? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS, you may respond to those 3 questions so that we also can check the next batch of questions from members. And very well, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, honorable members, for the very insightful questions. Let me start with a question from good Senator of Kitui, Enoch Wambua, the quick learner. And Mheshimiwa, it is quite sad about the loss of life due to snake bites. I lived in Australia, a country that has the top 10 most poisonous snakes in the world, whereby you find that in a year they can go with no recorded case of a person dying as a result of snake bite. It breaks my heart to hear of the girl who has died from a snake bite from a black mamba, whose venom kills you within half an hour if unattended to. And the challenge we are facing in the country is that for a long time, we have not really instituted systems of prevention and treatment. Many places you'll find that there is no snake antivenom. In Kenya, we don't produce any snake antivenom. It all comes from South Africa or India or from Europe and other countries. One of the first duties that I made, and I think it's very important to be self-sufficient, COVID taught us that, was to go to a research institute and center in Naivasha. And we have started the process together with others to produce our own snake antivenom in this country. There should be basically in every health center, which is within 10-kilometer distance of everybody in this country, a snake antivenom with a properly trained person who can actually take care of that. Many people die from snake bites just because of lack of treatment on time. Snakes don't have to kill you. If you get treated on time, if it's a cobra, you have 6 hours. Puff adder, you've got quite a number of hours. Black mamba, depending on your age, 30 minutes to 2 hours. So if there is good system, which we are putting into place with the Ministry of Health, we hope that we'll be able to take care of this business. In the question about compensation for snakes, there used to be snake bites were in the law, were part of the schedule of compensation claims. And this was removed in 2018 rather, as a result of fraud that was existing because people were claiming they were bitten by snakes, they were poisonous snakes, etc., etc. Therefore, the mandate still lies with the good honorable senator and other members, legislators. If you put it back, then we can be able to pay. As you know, government operates on the basis of rules and the rule of law. And so snakes, it's very clear, snake bites are not compensated by the government. Mr. Speaker, on the second question by good Senator Munyi from Embu, ameuliza swali kuhusu shida ya ndovu ambazo wamesema kuna ndovu 250 ambazo ziko eneo hilo na ndovu 4 zilitoka hivi majuzi. Ningependa kuambia kwamba sisi tunashirikiana sana. Utakuta ya kwamba hii Embu Mwea Game Reserve ni reserve. Inamaanisha ya kwamba inahudumiwa ama inatawaliwa ni county, serikali ya county ya Embu. Kwa hivyo sio national park kama yetu. Ijapokuwa ya kwamba tuko na Kenya Wildlife Service ambayo inahudumia wanyama wote katika nchi yetu ya Kenya, tunataka tuwe tunafanya ushirikiano. Kwa hivyo ile management ya game reserve hii ya Embu ya Mwea inapaswa kuwa pia na rangers ambao wanasaidia katika hizi shida peke yake. Ukisikia kama watu walisema kwamba hawana njia ama hawana nguvu ama hawana uwezo ama amri ya kwenda kuzindua zile ndovu, sifikiri ni kwa sababu sio kazi yao, ni kwa sababu hawatoshi. Tuko na upungufu sana wa vijana, wasichana ambao tungependa wao wanafanya kazi kule Kenya Wildlife Service, na ndio hivi majuzi rais wetu alikubali ya kwamba tuweze kuandika vijana na wengine zaidi ya 1500 wengi kutoka National Youth Service, ndio tuweze kuongeza ile idadi ya wafanyikazi, ndio ukiitana siku inayokuja tuwe na watu ambao wako tayari kuweza kuhudumia. Lakini Kenya Wildlife Service inahudumia wanyama wote wako game reserve ama nje. Mambo hili tunafanya. Tunaangalia katika hali ya fencing ambayo nitahitajia nikijibu swali ambalo limeulizwa na mheshimiwa kutoka Makueni. Fencing ya kuweza kuweka wanyama mahali wanapaswa kuwa, na jambo la pili pia tuna mpango wetu kuchimba mabawa tofauti, dams tofauti na water pans kwenye mahali ndovu wako, kwa sababu unajua kulikuwa na ukame sana, walikuwa wametoka. Tuwachimbie maji yao na mimea yao, wakae kwao bila kuja mahali wananchi wako. Honorable Speaker, on the third question asked by Senator from Makueni, my good friend Mheshimiwa Maanzo, about the wildlife conflict. I visited Makueni just a few weeks ago, whereby I visited the home of a man who had been killed by an elephant. And just for the record, it was quite heartbreaking because his wife told me that she was in the market and she heard that an elephant was near their area and had killed somebody. But she knew that her husband had left that morning to go somewhere else and was to come back in the evening. So when she was done with everything, she went home so that she could warn her husband that there is a rogue elephant around. And when she got home, she found that people were waiting for her, and it was her husband who had been actually murdered or killed by the elephant. It's a real problem. And we need to separate the animals from the people by fencing. Already we have a budget of 50 million for fencing in that area. I'm about to add another 100 million in part of deployment of funding from our ministry, so that we have 150 million. As to the process, as you know, government procurement processes, I'm waiting to receive the BQs for the fencing today and tomorrow, and we should be advertising by early next week, and by the beginning of next year, early January, if not late December, when the procurement system has been done properly, we will initiate the process of fencing very many areas in our country. I'm also going to look at how we can add more money in the supplementary budget and in other sources. We want to work with other organizations to be able to help us be able to fund this process. And lastly, there was a question about conservancies working without approval. I will get my officers to look into that, because we shouldn't have any conservancies working without an approval. And I don't know whether they're the ones who let the elephants come out, but I know that we are looking at also how we can moderate between fencing in the animals and also ensuring that the wildlife corridors are also protected, because animals at times need to move from one place to another place to see their relatives and also to feed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable CS. We will take the second batch of questions, and I'll invite Senator Lelengwe Tumbesi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Senate or Parliament is aware of a report that is in the ministry, which in the report has a list of victims spanning over 10 years that have not been compensated. And this report has been tabled to our committees, the committees of the Senate. I think a committee of the Senate, that is Land, Environment, and Wildlife. We are not aware whether the Cabinet Secretary will confirm to the House. We are not aware whether this report has been fully implemented as indicated. So my specific question to the Cabinet Secretary is, can he provide a confirmation regarding the full payment of all approved compensation cases spanning over 10 years to the victims or the beneficiaries contained in that report? Mr. Speaker, sir, most of our communities are not aware.
Senator Lelengwe, I believe you have asked your question. So you want to explain?
No, I want to ask the second question.
Do that.
Sorry?
You have already asked your question, I believe. Yes, thank you. Take your seat. Thank you. Senator Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll go back to ask on compensation, especially the big five. Mr. Speaker, over the years, KWS and the ministry, and I'm speaking on behalf of Isiolo people, that the only compensation they are paying is the people who have been killed or attacked by the big five. And as I'm speaking right now, there are so many cases that are pending. We have lost even a young man 2 weeks ago from a place called Gafarsa in Isiolo County. And these people are not paid. And even the payment is taking forever. So can the minister tell us how long or when is he planning to pay the pending bills? I wish I could be given another opportunity to ask another question, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator Julo. Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me to congratulate the minister for his arrival at the new ministry. I wish you success. Mr. Minister, traditionally, for over 100 years, tourism in this country has meant the Big Five and our beautiful beaches at the coast. Could you tell Senate and the whole country what plan you have put in place and how much money you have committed to ensure that we exploit the potential of tourism beyond the Big Five, beyond the beaches at the coast, so that the potential of the Kitmigai in Nyanza, the potential of the Crying Stone, Ehongomori in Kakamega, the potential of bullfighting, Kakamega Forest, Mount Elgon Forest, Mwivale Stone in Bungoma, the rich history in Trans Nzoia of the settlement can also be a product that can expand the income from tourism, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Minister.
Honorable CS, you may now also respond to that second batch of the 3 questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you also to the honorable members for their good questions. Let me start with a question by the Honorable Senator for Samburu, the Honorable Lelenkwe, about the list of who has been funded over the last 10 years. Let me start by saying that we have not really been compensating people because since after COVID in 2020, we've not done proper verification to know who needs to be compensated. The last verification is done up to the year 2020, and it is for 5.7 billion shillings. We had not paid anything since that time, and the first payment that was done has been done this year of 908 million has been paid out. This budget, as we stand, I have 1.1 billion available to be paid off, which I plan to pay as quickly as possible. I'm planning to find through other sources an additional 1.5 billion. If Treasury agrees, we've written to them a letter, we've got some money sitting somewhere. If they agree to another additional 1.5 billion, that will bring us to 2.6 billion in this financial year to be able to pay people. We'll still have a shortfall of 3.1 billion that is not available. And that is just up to 2020. We're not talking about 2021, 2022, and up to date, 2023. So we are talking about, we may need an additional 2 billion in addition to the shortfall of 3.1 billion. So if this House can help us get another 5 billion, we'll be able to compensate everyone. I'm also changing the way the system is run to ensure there is a faster response system and also to ensure there isn't fraud. The honorable member of Samburu will be happy to note that we have compensated the people of Samburu who have been injured to the tune of 39.14 million shillings since the beginning, since last year to date. So we are still continuing to compensate. In terms of a list of all that the areas that will be compensated, Mr. Speaker, sir, I have a booklet here that has a list of the 900 million payment criteria by county and the various people who are paid and the monies that were transferred into the bank accounts. And I table, Mr. Speaker. So,
Clerk. Mr. Clerk.
On the second question by Senator from Isiolo, About people who are killed and not paid, I think I've answered that question in the first question, because we are going through the process of paying. We've exhausted the 908. We have 1.1 billion. We are now starting the process of making payment. And my condolences to the family of the young person who was killed. Payment has been taking forever. It's true, because of lack of funding and everything. But you'll be happy to note, Madam Senator, that in the last payment, the people of Isiolo have been compensated to a tune of just over 23 million. Mr. Speaker, sir, to the last very brilliant question from Senator Halwale about the tourism, expanding the tourism. It's quite unfortunate, and I totally agree with him, that our products have been the same. It's always been the beach, the animals, and that's it. And the curios, same curios. We've not even added anything. The iPhone has changed. The Samsung has changed. The Nokia has changed over the years. The curios that we sell are the same ones that our great grandmothers were selling in 1960s, 1950s to the tourists. We really haven't evolved, and we wonder why other markets are taking over. So we have a very elaborate plan under the Kenya Kwanza government, and I'm very clear that we have to expand really the products that we are selling. I will be transversing this country beginning either in December or early January, and I'm going to visit all the 47 counties, and I'm going to sit down with the governors and the elected leaders of those counties, and we are going to discuss circuits. What do you have to offer here? And I've already had meetings with the different stakeholders, the tour agencies, the hoteliers, the promoters of tourism, and we have agreed we have to come up with new circuits for Kenya. We can't just be selling the same products. The population that is going around the world now is young. They want adventure. They want music. They want entertainment. They want to climb. They want to see new things, not just what their mothers and their fathers saw. So we also have to adapt to the times. You know, we need to have hiking programs. We need to have climbing programs. We need to have adventure. One of the things that I'm thinking is transforming some of our areas, like maybe Kilifi, for example, which was identified by the Vision 2030 as a resort area. You look at Kilifi, you look at Malindi, you look at Watamu. Let it be the Miami of Kenya. That's where the entertainment of Africa is. That's where the music comes. Let's bring those young people here. When they come there, we also transport them to Trans Nzoia. They see something in Trans Nzoia and they continue. We have got so much to offer in this country. I was the governor of Machakos. In Machakos, we've got the hill where water flows upwards. It's like a miracle. You know, you put your car on neutral, on a hill, the car goes upwards, not downwards, on a hill. You know, the world should be flocking to Machakos to see that. But we've not had a concerted effort, and I'm going to put a concerted effort to promote what each county has. For example, as I finish, Mr. Speaker, sir, we talk about Kenya being the cradle of humanity. In Turkana is where the bones of the so-called first person was found. And we haven't marketed that place, the cradle of humanity. As Minister of Tourism, I want to concentrate, it's a low-hanging fruit. We need to put up an airstrip, improve the airstrip. We need to build up a communication center, a small museum. Let people come and see where they came from. And we're going to provide opportunities, for example. We're going to provide areas where all these tourists can come. We give them booths, coats, they pay for them. We give them a small brush and they go and kneel down and they start, doing some archaeological work, looking for their relatives and their ancestors. And they leave us with money. So we need to be creative in the way we do things. So I assure you, this House, and I assure the Honorable Speaker and the Honorable Senator that we are going to change the way tourism is looked at. There's so much money out there. Countries like Greece are receiving 20 million tourists this year. We are talking about 1.9 only in Kenya. We look at Europe. Spain is looking at 60 million. We're still talking about 1.9 million. You look at the Bahamas, smaller than the city of Nairobi, is receiving 7 to 9 million tourists, expected to be 10 million this year. We're still talking about 1.9 million. This has to change. We have to grow the numbers and we have to also grow the value of the tourists. The animals are important. They are the magnet. When they come here, let the animals bring them here, let the beaches bring them here, but let's spread the money across the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable CS. I noticed while you were responding that the Honorable Senator Dr. Boni Halwale could not believe the miracle that you said about the Ngelani Hills. I must admit that I experienced this a week ago when we had gone to Ngelani for a petition that was filed by Senator Kavindu. And I challenged Senator Kavindu as well as the area member of parliament, Honorable Caleb, to document that, because it's true what the Honorable CS has said. You place your cow neutral, instead of going downhill, it goes uphill. Whether it's a miracle, as the Honorable CS says, or it's science, it's something that's worth documenting it for purposes of expanding the territories we can have in this country and the experiences. So Honorable CS, it's one of the low-lying ones that you can begin to work on. Senator Muma, I'll give you the opportunity to ask the next batch of questions for the CS to respond to them.
Thank you, Honorable CS, and welcome to the Senate. CS, my question is about the human-wildlife conflict with monkeys. Many areas in the country are actually suffering the human wildlife conflict with monkeys. I'm aware of places in Kisumu County, in Siaya County. I think I've heard of places in Makueni, and even in Nairobi, in the current area, we also have that problem. My worry is that we seem to be preoccupied with compensation as the solution to the human-wildlife conflict. Mr. CS, is it possible for your ministry to collaborate with the Ministry of Environment, for instance, to ensure that our wilds and forests, we include the planting of fruit trees and foods within the forests in order to keep animals like monkeys within the forest. Mr. CS, you'll agree with me that all the monkeys want to do is to have some food. But because of the expansion of the human settlement, we have actually displaced animals, and as a result, the conflict is inevitable. But if we are only thinking of compensation and not thinking of ways of keeping those animals within the wild, then we will never resolve this issue. Is it possible that you people can think out of the box and enable, like what happened on Monday? We could have planted lots of fruit trees within the forests in order to keep the animals within the forest.
Thank you, Senator Muma. And honorable members, when granted an opportunity, let's just go straight to the question so that we can keep time and also enable the CS to specifically respond to the specific areas of concern. Senator Mofaya.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I am seeking to know from the Minister whether he is aware of an international cultural event, Dube Dihura Cultural Festival in Tharaka-Nithi County. It is celebrated yearly between the month of August and September, which attracts quite a number of people, including both local and international tourists. And I remember one time your ministry promised to give this facility, the venue where this exercise is being conducted, a facelift, because this place, Honorable Waziri, is dusty and neglected, and it's a serious event that can attract a lot of both local and international foreign exchange. Your ministry in 2021 event promised to give 10 million to this, to give it a facelift. And up to now, we have not seen anything being done towards make sure that this place is given the standards that it requires. Could you be at a position maybe to tell people from Tharaka-Nithi and this house what is the ministry is doing to make sure that this very important facility is given a facelift? In a rejoinder, Honorable Speaker,
You've asked your questions.
in that arrangement, Honorable Speaker, just a rejoinder to that question, Honorable Sir. We recently, the Meru National Park was fenced, but we are still experiencing a lot of influx from the local animals, which are causing a lot of conflicts between the park and the locals. The same park is being used as a conduit for bandits. When animals are stolen from the Raka, the same park is being used as a conduit to make sure that animals walk through those parks. I don't know for what reasons, and it's a government facility. So people from the Raka would want to know whether your ministry is aware that the Meru National Park is quite a number of times used as a conduit to transport stolen animals from the Raka people.
Senator Maruma Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to seek clarification from the CS on which law is being implemented. In 2018, Mr. Speaker, the National Assembly attempted to change the Wildlife Management Act of 2013, and there were two things that were amended. The first one was removing the snake from the schedule of animals for compensation. The second one was the changing of the composition of the wildlife conservation committees, the county wildlife conservation committees. Initially, the Wildlife Conservation Committee was chaired by an eminent person who is knowledgeable in matters conservation. It was changed to have the county commissioner to chair the county wildlife conservation committees. Those two items, Mr. Speaker, were in that amendment for 2018. That was done by National Assembly, but National Assembly did not seek concurrence with
Senator
the
Maruma,
Senate.
Senator Maruma, I'm afraid I'm going to stop you there.
Yes.
Your question has already been asked. Allow the Honorable CS to ask.
It's
to
just
respond
clarification
as to
because.
which act is in operation. You have asked the question. I'll stop you from there, kindly.
Thank you
We
so
need
much.
to progress.
Okay,
Honorable
okay.
CS, lastly, I'll allow Senator Chute so that you can respond to that batch of questions, and we move on to the next.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I had an opportunity to visit KWS headquarters yesterday. This is in relation to a mzee from Marsabit by the name Borufa Kansa, who died 3 weeks ago. They had a crop destruction, and he was waiting for this compensation from the for the last 9 years, from 2014. And I was surprised to note that there are a lot of approvals for compensation that is awaiting payment from the Treasury. Number two, there are lots of claims at the county level awaiting committee verification for payment. What I want to ask the Honorable CS is the lots of claims that are being expected at the county level needs your approval. Mr. CS, what are you going to do, or how soon are you going to convene these committees to verify the compensation for the people of Marsabit County? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Senator Chute. Honorable CS, you may proceed to answer those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and thank you, honorable members, for the questions. I'll start with a question by Senator Uma. It's always good to hear. Not very many people stand and speak for the rights of monkeys, and thank you for that. I think it's a brilliant idea of planting fruit trees, mangoes and others that the animals like, so that we can also supply them with food that they want. And it's something that I'm going to look at, because we look at mitigation areas, even as we open up other areas. We have, we're looking at also wildlife corridors and dispersed areas, and we have a report that we're compiling to look at how we can be able to live with those animals, because sometimes those monkeys transverse from one area to another area, and then we've blocked where they pass through. And so as a result, they're not able to go from one area when it dries up to one area where there's food. And so as a result of that, they end up in our shambas. And so we are looking at all that so we could also advise. It's a big challenge throughout the country in terms of the blocking of corridor areas of animals. At times, animals just want to pass and go their way. But then if they find a house, they find a farm, they find people where they're not supposed to be, then those accidents happen. But thank you for those ideas, Honorable Senator. I really appreciate them. And we will implement them in a chap formula very, very quickly. Mheshimiwa Senator, good friend from Tharaka Nithi, about the cultural event. Yes, last year the Cabinet Secretary attended that function, and the monies that were promised, I can promise you in this house that next week I have a meeting and I'll make sure the monies are allocated, and that is done. And I'll also work closely with the governor to ensure that we also share resources so we can do a good job. And I'll be visiting Tharaka Nithi as one of my first stops to look at what we can do in terms of tourism. On your question about Meru National Park, yes, I'm aware of some of the challenges. You are aware, Honorable Senator, because you're in the know that we had a security operation there just the other day of bandits and people using that as a corridor, and we're working on it because they're able to, affect the fence and go in and go out. At times they're going in, fattening the animals and moving further. But it's something that I'm aware of, and we are taking care of it together with other state agencies. Thank you, my very good friend, Senator Maduma, about your question about the amendment. As you know, it is a 2018 amendment, and you've said it right about the removing of the Snakes and Wildlife Committee. But I have a question that has been sent to me also by the other house about the same issue. So I think it's more of a technical issue, and I'm not able to answer at this time. And I think it's a technical issue between the Senate and Parliament in terms of some of those things that need to be taken care of, housekeeping to be done by this house and the other house. But it's a good point you're making. My good friend from Marsabit, and my condolences for the loss of the Mzee who passed away despite waiting for all these years and not being paid. And that's a story everywhere. It breaks my heart. Families, even people die and they stay for years. Their families are in poverty. They are the breadwinners. They've not been compensated. It's a really big problem. And I request you, as you pointed out in your statement, maybe you can also intervene with this Treasury so they also understand the importance of this issue, because it's an issue of life and death. Just as we are buying medicines for people, just as we are doing important things, compensation is critical, especially where people have lost their lives or been maimed and they cannot continue. And I would like to be able to pay everyone. I'd like to confirm to this house that the committee verification, it's already started. It is ongoing. And for the 1.1 billion, I want to be able to pay that money very quickly without any delays, as long as Treasury is able to give us that money. I have 1.5 billion shillings seated somewhere. If Treasury approves, that money is available to start paying even tomorrow. But we are yet to get the necessary approval. With a bit of flexing your muscles of this house, we may be able to move forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Honorable CS. We will take the last batch of questions, and I'll begin with Senator Mungatana.
Asante sana Bwana Spika kwa kunipa nafasi. Bwana Spika, swali langu lilikuwa ni fupi. Kule kwetu Tana River, Bwana Spika, tuko na shida kubwa sana ya wanyama. Kwanza nataka waziri aifanye priority, afanye safari tupange, aje awasikize wananchi vile Tana River tunaumia. Watu wanakufa sana, lakini swali langu ni hili: ni mipango gani ambayo waziri ako nayo kuongeza askari wa game, kule kwa tunaita game au KWS, kwa sababu mara nyingi hawa ndio huwa wanatusaidia, lakini ukiangalia namba zao zimepunguzwa kabisa. Ukiangalia sehemu ya Delta hapa katikati Tana River sub county, ukiangalia Tana North sub county, namba zimepungua badala ya kuongezeka, na shida zetu zinazidi kuongezeka. Je, waziri, ni mipango gani ambayo uko nayo kutuongezea wasimamizi wa wanyama wa pori katika gatuzi dogo la Tana River? Asante Bwana Spika.
Thank you, Senator Mungatana. Senator Mbugua George.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With your indulgence, I would request the Cabinet Secretary to appraise this House on the reports of harassment by visitors at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and what effect it has had on tourism and what the government is doing to alleviate the situation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Bugwa. Senator Cheptumo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in Baringo County, there is a game reserve called Kapnorok, Lake Kapnorok Game Reserve. And there has been serious conflict between the residents of that area and the wildlife in that particular game reserve. And I wanted to know from the minister, sometimes some of the game reserves, Mr. Speaker, provides pasture for livestock within those areas. And sometimes because of the conflict between the wildlife and the residents, there is a lot of inhuman harassment of the residents of that area. Mr. Speaker, I want to know from the minister if it is possible for his ministry to have MOUs, memorandum of understanding between the game reserve management and the people, so that during dry season, Mr. Speaker, then the people are allowed to graze in the game reserves. Because, Mr. Speaker, the game reserves really is a resource within our communities. And I think the conflict should be managed in a manner that there should be some understanding so that the locals can be allowed to graze and with understanding that that is an important resource for them. Is the ministry able to engage communities under MOUs and allow people to graze in the game reserves with understanding?
And lastly, Senator Tobiko.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to hear that the ministry is now going to do dams and water pans at the park areas, because really this has been the biggest contributing factor of the human-wildlife conflict, as the wildlife get out of the parks to get water from private water pans, Mr. Speaker, and communal water pans. And so I believe with a lot of water pans and dams done at the park areas, that will then lessen the human-wildlife conflict in our areas, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, because we have areas where the human-wildlife conflict is really a major issue, has stopped children from going to schools. In our county around Kiboko area, Poka Kenyawa ward, Mr. Speaker, it's a big issue, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the second thing is about the snakes, Mr. Speaker. I know we are not allowed to kill the snakes. But even if there was compensation, which there isn't, on snake bites, Mr. Speaker, it's natural. When you see a snake, the next thing you imagine is that it will bite and kill, Mr. Speaker. And so I just want the minister to note that the truth is that we are killing snakes, because we come from places where the pufferdas, the black mambas, are all over, Mr. Speaker. And it's a natural instinct from human beings. You see a snake and you kill. In fact, I am ready to offer those who harvest, the poison from the snakes. I'm ready to offer them a place in my home to camp so that they can get the snakes and get the poison thing, the one they use to go and make the antivenom, Mr. Speaker, because this is a daily occurrence in our places. The pufferdas are so many, the black mambas are so many. And then my last contribution, Mr. Speaker.
Actually, Senator Tobiko.
Yes.
I had given you an opportunity to ask the cabinet secretary a question, but I've noticed you have commented.
Yeah,
And in the course
allow
of-
me to do the last,
in the
Mr.
course
Speaker.
of your comments, you have confessed to the killing of snakes on a daily basis. Kindly close on your comments so that the CS
Okay,
can
let
respond.
me close this way, Mr. Speaker. I have been wondering why KWS does not take time to do an awareness creation campaign within the communities that live with wildlife, so that when I see a black mamba, I know how to behave. And when someone sees an elephant, they know how to behave. When they see a hyena, they know how to behave. Because sometimes people kill these animals because you do not know how to escape from them. You do not know that this one may be harmless. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure if KWS was to do an awareness creation campaign within the communities, or even be teaching the children in schools on the various behaviors of animals and how they should be handled, I'm sure still we will be able to reduce the human-wildlife conflict. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS, before you respond, I have a communication to make. Honorable Senators, in the public gallery, we have 45 students accompanied by 4 teachers from Riara International School in Nairobi City, County, who are on an education visit to the Senate. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. I will ask Senator Boni Halwale to welcome them in the Senate. Under 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the privilege to acknowledge our children. Mr. Speaker, Riara schools have made a very big contribution to the education of this nation. I therefore wish to welcome the young people plus their teachers and assure them that as we sit down here in the chamber, their round faces reminds us God's message that the world will never come to an end. In the coming days, some of them will be in this house, in the other house, in our county assemblies. There'll be doctors like me, there'll be lawyers like you, there'll be teachers like many, and so on and so forth. We wish you well, and all the children of Kenya who are now sitting exams, we wish you good luck. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Boni. Honorable CS, you may respond now to that last batch of questions from the honorable members.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to acknowledge the students who are here from Riara. I think it's a very good, I remember my days as a student visiting different areas where we got a lot of interest and we learned quite a few things. Nianze na swali la Mheshimiwa Danson Mungatano kutoka kwa ndugu zetu wa Tana River kuhusu shida ambayo imetokea kule kwa sababu ya upungufu wa wasimamizi wa wanyamapori. Napenda kuambia kwamba shida ambayo tumekuwa nayo ni upungufu wa watu wa kutosha. Hivi sasa rais wetu ametupa ruhusa ya kuweza kuajiri zaidi ya karibu 1,500 wapya hawa wasimamizi. Kwa hivyo tutaanza kuajiri hivi karibuni, tutatangaza, wengi tutatoa kule kwa National Youth Service ndio waweze kuwa ukiitana wako hapo wanaweza kuhudumia kwa njia ambayo inafaa, na tukipata hela zaidi tutaweza kuongeza wengine. Nipenda pia kuarifu ya kwamba katika mna shida tofauti katika upande wa Tana River kwa sababu ya ule uhusiano ama kuishi karibu na wanyama, na pia katika zile shida ambazo zimewakumba, na sio mamba peke yake, ni wengi, lakini tayari tumelipa katika muhula ambao umepita, huu ambao unaendelea, tumelipa shilingi milioni 77 kwa wale ambao wameathiriwa katika kaunti ya Tana River. Moving on to the second question about harassment of tourists and visitors at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. It is a real concern that I've spoken about. I'd like to inform this House that the Minister for Roads and Transport held a very important meeting with this team, and he has initiated procedures and changes that will be undertaken to make sure that the airport is operating properly in many ways, from its physical perspective to the way the operations run, to the way visitors are received. We're working closely together as one team of government and the Kenya Kwanza government, and we are going to ensure that this does not happen. Yes, definitely, when people feel harassed, there's a problem. I was telling the members, I was telling the Commissioner General of KRA that you always have to look at the bigger picture. That most of us, when you're growing up, were given the duty of running after chicken. So we could catch the chicken whenever we had a visitor, so the chicken could be slaughtered. And you could run all over and try to catch the chicken. But at times we saw what our fathers did. Instead of running after the chicken, they just use maize, and they would drop, what do you call it? One seed of maize, we can call it a seed of maize, and the chicken would bite it, another one, and you get close, and they catch, and they're able to get hold of the chicken. You don't calculate the cost of the chicken, because the cost of the maize, because if you concentrate on the small pieces of, maize comb, you lose the bigger chicken. So we're trying to tell them that, yes, at times you may want people to be charged for this and this, but let's look at the bigger picture. Furthermore, I realize that they have been harassing people who don't need to be harassed. For example, you carry your phone. I was there just the other day. I was visiting, I was traveling, and I saw them stop a lady who just had her 2 old phones in her bag, and they made her open her bag. What's the deal about having 2 or 3 phones? You are allowed to have 2 or 3 phones? And it's different. If you're carrying a package of phones to sell, you need to pay duty. You're carrying your own individual phones, and they can tell they're not in a package. Why do you even need to stop the person to verify that? So there's a lot of education that needs to go to our people that we're working together to be able to raise enough system. But work is being implemented, and the future is bright. About the question, very good question about Baringo. It's good to note that we can't just allow domestic animals to go and graze in game reserves. That's where they're set as game reserves. There's that challenge where people need to go and get fodder and all that. And we've entered into agreement with several counties. We've entered into agreement with Mbere, with Shimba, Mbere, Conservancy, Shimba Hills Conservancy, and South Kitui Conservancy about how to do some of these things. But there's also the danger of diseases. As you know, Kenya wants to place itself as a big marketer of beef to the world. And if you start mixing animals for livestock with wild animals, there's a danger of transfer of diseases. And therefore, we can get to a place where all exports from Kenya are banned. And so we lose money. So it's also important. Also, diseases can be transferred to animals, and we eat those animals, and we fall sick and we die. So it's very important to keep the wild animals separated from the domestic animals, the livestock animals. But we can look at entering into an agreement with the game reserve in Baringo, and also to let the member of Senate know that this year we've paid 40 million to the people in terms of compensation to the people of Baringo. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, the very good question from Senator Tubiko from Jirani Mwema from Kajiado is that, and it's good to say we had a senator here who spoke on behalf of the monkeys. It's good to see another senator speaking on behalf of the snakes. And it is true, education and awareness are key. Many people don't know how to identify animals and identify dangerous and non-dangerous snakes and how to deal with them. It's good to note that only 33% of snakes in Kenya are poisonous. 66% are not poisonous. Unfortunately, they don't have a uniform like the students of Riara, where you can tell these ones are from here or these ones are from here, which are poisonous, which are not poisonous. But we can educate people on how to keep away from the snakes. For example, people need to know that when you have chicken in your household, you're inviting snakes to come to your household. You're more in danger of getting snakes to your household when you have chicken around, because they come for the eggs, they come for the chicks. Put the chicken away from the household. That you can also put water buckets and dig, make some water areas for the snakes away from your home. So snakes zinapindukia huko, zinakunywa maji, zinaenda mbali. By also looking at the gala where you put your maize and ensuring that it is airy and you don't have rats, because they come for the rats and then they meet you on the way, and then they bite you. So it's about awareness, and we are going to do it much better. I think it's a very good idea that work on that. About the antivenom, I had said earlier on that we are about to start manufacturing a process to end up manufacturing antivenom, snake antivenom in our country. So it doesn't have to come from far, but even in the meantime, I'm going to get snake antivenom everywhere. So even as we manufacture snake antivenom, we welcome your offer for us to come to your farm and milk the snakes and have that as part of research process. And also, just to let you know, and to let the members of the public know, Mr. Speaker, with the indulgence, is that wild animals are called animals because they are wild. You can't reason with them. You can't tame them. You can't tame a lion. And that elephants are dangerous animals and they are very fast. A normal human being, myself here and Senator Mungatana, who looks active, when we are running, I think the top speed we can make is 25 kilometers per hour. And that's time we are sweating like crazy. An elephant, when it's just jogging, will do 28, 30 kilometers per hour, 35 kilometers per hour. You cannot outrun an elephant. Even if you are far, it will catch up to you. And so we need to tell people how to keep away. If you see it flapping its ears, you know that's a danger. You keep away. You can't outrun an elephant. You may be far, but it will catch up with you very, very fast. So it's about being able to let wananchi know and being able to have a good program. And we're going to do something that is going to be effective using the media, local media, and also community education for people to know how to live with or near wild animals. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for this opportunity and this session. And as we continue promoting our country, we have to be able to protect our wildlife. As you know, we are getting new visitors coming. I'm leaving here to rush to Nairobi National Park. The president of Romania is visiting. He's currently exploring the park. I want to be able to show him a few things as the interest in Kenya grows. Our president, William Ruto, has been able to arouse interest in our country, and we should see an influx of many people coming to our country. Kenya is being spoken about everywhere. I witnessed this in New York when I went to sessions in the United Nations, whereby once you get in and you raise your hand, they skip many other people to let Kenya speak first. Kenya is now an anchor nation in terms of how we are being looked at in the foreign world, and we should expect very many visitors to come to this country for tourism, for conferences and others. And it is our job to ensure they are comfortable and they're here so they can leave their money behind, so we can create employment for our kids. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you, honorable members.
Thank you, Honorable CS. I will ask Senator Chimera to be the first person to ask you questions next time you appear, because he had a question. He came in when I had already exercised the discretion to close on the question time. I want to appreciate Honorable CS, together with your team, Madam Sylvia, PS, and the rest of the team that supports you, for taking time to come in and respond to the questions in this Honorable House. I'm very sure your involvement in answering these questions is giving us the comfort and the assurance as to the role your ministry is playing, and you will take into consideration a number of the proposals and comments made by members in furtherance of your work in the ministry. I would like to appreciate you once again and wish you and your team a very good day, and you stand released from the Senate. Thank you very much. Honorable members, we had two other CSs who were meant to be here today. We had the Honorable CS for Foreign Affairs and Treasury. We have received a communication from him that he, on official duty, has traveled outside the country and has excused himself. So question number 18 will be deferred, courtesy of a letter that came from the office of the CS. Secondly, the CS for Transport and Roads is to be here in a little while. He had a conversation with the chair and requested that he will join us in due course. So for purposes of us progressing, We will, in the meantime, deal with the next issues in the order paper as we await. Should they come in good time, should he appear in good time, we will proceed to deal with the questions that were scheduled for the ministry. And honorable members, earlier on, Senator Chute had taken us through the, had moved the motion on the extension of time. So I would like us to revert to that bit so that we progress on that. Senator Chute. Clerk, call the next order.
Order number 9, motion, extension of the mandate of the ad hoc committee on the compensation to the Kenya victims of the 1998 bombing of the United States of America Embassy in Nairobi.
What is your point of order?
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, just some clarity on where we are going. Mr. Speaker, there were a number of ministers who were listed to appear before us. Amongst them, yes? Mr. Speaker, amongst them, the Cabinet Secretary of Roads, Transport and Infrastructure, who had a question number 65 on the fate of the presidential directive on upgrading of Kakamega airstrip to an international status. So, Speaker, we wanted you to guide us about that and other ministers who are involved so that we know. Yes.
I will, and,
Yes,
and I'm afraid, Senator Boni, you probably was not concentrating on the directive from the chair. I have indicated that the Honorable CS for Treasury and Foreign Affairs has written a letter which has been accepted to the House that he's asking to have his question deferred because he's on official duties outside the country. He therefore could not attend today. That I did say. Secondly, as regards the Honorable CS for Roads and Transport, there are actually more than 4 questions. There is question number 30, this question number 47, question number 48, question number 56, question number 60, and question number 65. All these are directed to the CS for Roads and Transport. Communication which has been received is that he's traveling from Mombasa to attend to these questions. So we will, Honorable Cherargei, the chair is speaking. You can't interrupt the chair as he's giving his address. And I thought you are a ranking member with us, so you should be able to understand at what point do you bring in your point of order. I will give you the opportunity. So, Senator Boni, that one is the direction that we'll give. We will have the CS for Transport to respond to these questions. The communication we have received is that he is on his way to join the House and respond to those questions. Senator Cherargei, what was your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, on a matter of procedure, I think this House had made a ruling that we can only wait for a minister or they can fail to attend a House on 2 occasions only. When they're attending parliamentary committee or parliament or when they're in cabinet. Mr. Speaker, could you clarify to this House which procedure would force the House to adjourn and re-adjourn to wait for a cabinet minister who was well versed that he should have appeared today at as from 9:30, looking at many issues, Mr. Speaker, sir, so that we don't build a tradition where in future, if a cabinet minister feels that they don't want to come at 10, they will come at 12, and imagine that the House will freeze or proceed with other House business so that they can come. I think the neater way should have, even if they are busy, the neater way should have been to reschedule to a later date. Instead, because now, Speaker, unless you are making a different ruling that in future, if I'm a witness before the parliament and I'm given a time to appear at 9 and I got get up or some of the reasons I just decide to defer at 3 p.m. and tell the House that I will arrive at 3. So, Mr. Speaker, can you clarify so that in future, we don't open a window? You know, this is a house of rules and traditions. And then we don't want, when we summon or invite a witness before the House, they can go to court and challenge and say at one point the cabinet CS was supposed to appear
But because he was traveling, the House decided to defer the matter until an hour or 2 hours later. So we need to be very clear so that we don't open a very dangerous window that will abuse the parliamentary privilege and the position of parliament, because we have agreed there are only two situations that you can avoid sitting: cabinet meetings and appearing before parliament. Can you clarify so that we don't risk other issues that might crop up in future? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed, Senator Mungatana.
Mr. Speaker, in addition to what my colleagues have said, I just wanted, Mr. Speaker, to say that it's important for cabinet secretaries to honor the summonses here. In particular, I was personally waiting for CS Murkomen because we have a national embarrassment at the airport where rain is falling. Rain is falling inside the international airport, Mr. Speaker, and it would have been an important position for him to clarify what is going on, because what the newspapers have reported, they are saying that he is talking about Jubilee administration. Mr. Speaker, how can we be talking about Jubilee administration 1 year down the road? We wanted the minister to come and clarify, and this is an important podium for him. Isn't that more important than traveling, Mr. Speaker, traveling to wherever? Mr. Speaker, I think you should be very firm about these ministers. We want them to honor the time that is in this house, Mr. Speaker, especially when important things that are embarrassing the nation. Mr. Speaker, imagine I'm being called by, a relative, my brother who is living outside, to tell me what is happening in Kenya. You can't even fix your airports. What's happening? Mr. Speaker, it's a national embarrassment, and the minister should have been here to clarify what he's going to do about it. I thank you, Mr. Minister.
Thank you, Senator Cherargei. Thank you, Senator Mungatana. In fact, the more reason as to why the Honorable CS, I believe, was accommodated to come at around 11 is because of what you've just raised. As to the decision that this House took previously, that is the decision. It can only be at the point where the SBC has agreed to adjourn or to defer a question. Otherwise, all cabinet secretaries who are required to respond to questions are supposed to appear, unless otherwise it has been accepted by the SBC. In this case, we only had received this communication from the CS for Treasury as to his official engagement outside. This other assignment on other ministers who are meant to appear, including the CS for Roads, was to appear at 11 because SBC indeed said he must appear. But for what Honorable Mungatana has raised, he was engaged in that particular assignment, so that is the reason of his delay. There isn't any other reason as to why that has been accepted by the chair. Yes, Senator Bonnie.
Mr. Speaker, sorry if I'm seen to be slowing the House, but I find it difficult to understand. Probably the clerks can guide us. Under what standing order do we wait for a minister? Mr. Speaker, we've been around for a while. We've never seen a situation whereby business of the House is being stood down so as to wait for a minister. And even if we are going to do it, Mr. Speaker, could you tell us, are we suspending the House?
Senator Bonnie, I had already indicated that we are calling the next order to deal with the motion for purposes of making sure that the business of the House is not suspended. Senator Cherargei.
Mr. Speaker, what I want to repeat what my colleagues have said with all tremendous respect. I know you have power to rearrange the order papers per the standing orders. But how do we look before Kenyans if we can wait for a cabinet secretary? It is not, Mr. Speaker, can you rule that the CS should appear in next possible sitting so that we can proceed with other matters, Mr. Speaker? Because it's unmatched. I am not aware You are talking about the issue of leaking roof in JKI, the issue of roads that have been swept away by floods. You know, these are issues that we needed the Cabinet Secretary Murkomen to come and clarify on what the ministry is putting interventions of floodings in the country. So, Mr. Speaker, what we are arguing is just for neatness of the House. Since now you have rearranged the order paper, which you have powers to as per the standing order, can you direct that? Because if Senate becomes the first parliament, in fact, parliament does not even wait for a president. If we wait for a cabinet minister by the name Murkomen, it will be a national embarrassment plus what is happening in JKI of leaking terminal roofs, Mr. Speaker. So what I request with out of respect, and I know you are a gentleman, you are a good man, allow the House to proceed. Advise the SBC, because you are a learned senior counsel, advise the ISBC that out of the neatness and respect and tradition of this House, let the minister be allowed to appear at a later date. It will be neater. Then we proceed with other matters. There is extension of ad hoc committee, Mr. Speaker, ad hoc committee by Senator Chute. There is the issue of debate of presidential State of the Nation address honor to be addressed, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, finally, I want to repeat what I've said. There are only two instances that you can fail to appear before Parliament. When you are only attending a cabinet meeting, Mr. Speaker. We shall not allow the CS Murkomen to take this House for granted. He was here. He knows the value of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have received so many complaints. Even Chute will tell you in Marsabit, Mogadishu roads in northern Kenya, the roads have been swept away, Mr. Speaker, by floods. So, Mr. Speaker, can you rule that we allow the CS to go and see those roads and leaking in roofs in JKI? Then we give him a later day next week. Then we proceed with the matters of the House. Considering, Mr. Speaker, our agenda is heavy. Mr. Speaker, please properly guide the House for the benefit of all of us, Mr. Speaker, and so that at least some of us can move with other issues that is on the order paper.
Senator Cherogei, Senator Boni, you are aware that under Standing Order 45-2, the chair has got the mandate to reorganize the order paper and the business of the House for the convenience of the Senate. And it is on this provision of this standing order that we made those rearrangements. But in view of what you have said, I will, as I've already stated, direct that Senator Chute proceeds with this motion, and for the neatness of the House, make relevant directives as regards the appearances of the cabinet secretaries before the House. Senator Chute, proceed to prosecute your motion. Senator Chute, proceed to prosecute your motion on the extension of time for the compensation of the Kenya victims of the 1998 bombing of the United States of America Embassy.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to move this motion today on the extension of the mandate of the ad hoc committee on the compensation to the Kenya victims of the 1998 bombing of the United States of America Embassy in Nairobi on behalf of the chairperson. Mr. Speaker, that aware that at the sitting of the Senate held on Thursday, 27 June 2023, the Senate resolved to establish an ad hoc committee to investigate the compensation to the Kenyan victims of 1998 bombing of the United States of America Embassy in Nairobi and report back to the House within 3 months of its establishment. Mr. Speaker, realizing that the extension period of 45 days of the tenure of the ad hoc committee lapsed on 10th November 2023, yet the committee has a lot of work to execute to conclude in conducting the inquiry. So, Speaker, now, therefore, the Senate resolves to renew the mandate of the ad hoc committee for further period of 100 days from 10th November 2023 to enable the committee to finalize and table its report in the Senate on or before 18th February 2024. Mr. Speaker, sir, as you are aware, since its establishment, the committee has carried out various activities pertaining to its mandate. As a snapshot, the committee has held a number of meetings in which it transacted the following key businesses. A, Mr. Speaker, consideration of preliminary report from the law firm in the US that has been litigating on the compensation of the victims by the USA government. B, meeting with the victims of bomb blast tragedy and their representatives. C, Mr. Speaker, attended the bomb blast victim prayer day held on Saturday, 5th August 2023, and attended the 25th commemoration of the bomb blast held on 7th August 2023. E, conducted a public hearing. F, meeting with the advocates who have represented the bomb blast all through. Meeting with the National Council for Persons with Disability. H, meeting with the Ministry of Health. I, meeting with the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. J, meeting with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs. K, meeting with the Ministry of Interior and National Administration. Mr. Speaker, all the above-mentioned activities have been crucial for the committee as they have provided invaluable insights that will enable the committee to fulfill its mandate.
I hope you're closing because it's just as procedural motions in Tachute.
Sorry?
I don't think it will have a lot of issues that would warrant you to run us through all that.
Say that again.
I'm saying this
Yes.
is a mere procedural motion which you just can read it out, get somebody to second so that we progress, because I believe this House will not have much of an issue as regards extension of time.
Thank you very much. Let me, in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, let me say, before inviting someone to second, it has been 25 years, Mr. Speaker. The victims are waiting for compensation, and we've done a lot. We've, in fact, met with the Prime Cabinet Secretary about 3 weeks ago. We are intending to meet with the embassy, American embassy, anytime very soon. We are also intending very soon to visit the United States of America to convince or lobby for the Senate in America to pass a law for the compensation of the 1998 victims. We are seeking 100 days more time, and I now ask Senator Cheptumo to second this motion. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will be brief. Mr. Speaker, I serve in this committee also as a member with my neighbor here. Mr. Speaker, there is indeed compelling reasons and justification for this motion of extension of time. Mr. Speaker, as happily prosecuted by the mover, several Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, suffered a great deal during the bomb blast in 1998. Several Kenyans died, and many of them, Mr. Speaker, were maimed. And 25 years down the line, Mr. Speaker, they have not been compensated. Mr. Speaker, it should be known that the suffering Kenyans are going through for that period of time arose out of a bombing by terrorists, not because they were fighting the Kenyan population with the Kenyan government, but it was an incident arising, targeting the United States of America embassy, Mr. Speaker. So this Kenyan suffered because of a situation that was existing between the terrorists and the American government. And so, Mr. Speaker, and for 25 years, really, there has been no attention given to these Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, this House, therefore, should be recognized and appreciated, Mr. Speaker, because for the first time, this House now has taken the step to seek compensation. And Mr. Speaker, I can assure you as a member of this committee that, said by my colleague here, we've had meetings with many stakeholders. But Mr. Speaker, I want to escalate this conversation to the United States of America to engage the Senate and other stakeholders, the embassy of the United States of America in Kenya, so that, Mr. Speaker, then we move to the final stage of this process. If we can only do it, Mr. Speaker, if we are given time. So I want to support and request the House, Mr. Speaker, to approve this request so that, Mr. Speaker, the committee therefore will finalize. Within 45 days, we are able to conclude and report back to the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, I support. 100 days, Mr. Speaker, sorry.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question that aware at the sitting of the Senate held on Thursday, 27th June 2023, the Senate resolves to establish an ad hoc committee to investigate the compensation to the Kenyan victims of the 1998 bombing of the United States of America Embassy in Nairobi and report back to the House within 3 months of its establishment, realizing that the extension period of 45 days of the tenure of the ad hoc committee lapsed on 10th of November 2023, yet the committee has a lot of work to execute to conclude in conducting the inquiry. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves to renew the mandate of the ad hoc committee for a further period of 100 days from 10th November 2023 to enable the committee to finalize and table its report in the Senate on or before 18th February 2024. Now, honorable senators, I can see from the dashboard a good number of you seeking, I believe, to debate on this particular motion. And as I directed earlier on, the move of the motion, this is just a procedural motion. I believe we will not take a lot of time to debate on this one, and we should be able to close on this in the shortest time possible. So I want to urge members, I will ask only 3 members to speak to this one so that we can move on to the next order paper. I believe Senator Mugatana.
Mr. Speaker, I will follow your guidance and be very brief. Mr. Speaker, I am grudgingly supporting the extension. I am grudgingly supporting because they have already come before this House for extension of their mandate before. And I've been listening carefully to the mover and the seconder to give us a reason, a solid reason why they need another extension of their mandate. And Mr. Speaker, I didn't hear any except that there is an unfinished work. But I would want to put my faith in the honorable gentlemen like Cheptumo, like Senator Chute, the leader of that team, Mama Agnes Kavindu. These are people that I believe are very honorable members who have distinguished themselves in various places we have worked with them. But with this caution, Mr. Speaker, that let them finish the work. Ad hoc committees are not supposed to stay in perpetuity. They should go, finalize the job, come back, give us a report, we finish with this matter. Because the same people who are waiting for that report, the same people they are fighting for are the same people who are going to tell them, you are taking too long, you're not doing anything, you are just like the other people. And then Senate will come under another fresh attack. So we are asking them that may this be the last extension, let them not come back again, let them just finish the work and give us a report. So because they are good men there, Mr. Speaker, I will support the motion, but grudgingly, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Joyce.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Allow me to really support my one and only EPO Chair, National Coalition, Mheshimiwa Chute. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that this ad hoc committee, I know, Honorable Speaker, I am one of the interested parties, and I have been following on a number of activities that they have been undertaking. This is one of the ad hoc that involves a number of stakeholders in terms of really finding out on how best they can address the issue of these victims, Honorable Speaker. So allow me, Honorable Speaker, to really agree with them in terms of extensions of time, because I have said it involves a number of ministries and even outside the country. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, they have a goodwill of the leadership of this country. And that is why, Honorable Speaker, they have to do the due diligence in a number of activities that it is involved. And I would want to request, because this is just a procedural motion, Honorable Speaker, that we really support and give them time. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Beatrice Ogola.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to support this motion and to appeal to this Honorable House to grant the ad hoc committee the 100 days that have been requested for an extension. Honorable Speaker, I'm also a member of this committee, and we have been looking at the compensation on a number of issues on loss of lives. And Honorable Speaker, this is loss of life of over 200 Kenyans that lost their lives on that day. Honorable Speaker, in the committee, we have been meeting different Kenyans from all over the country. As you notice, Honorable Speaker, that this was an happening that was most unfortunate, that Kenyans lost their lives, a number of them in the course of their duties. A number of them are Kenyans who are just working in adjacent buildings to the American embassy. And a number of Kenyans, Honorable Speaker, were Kenyans that were going about their lives, their daily lives that were passing by the road. And this happened to happen as they were passing along the bomb blast site. Honorable Speaker, apart from the loss of over 200 people, we have been dealing with listening to over 5,000 Kenyans that had massive injuries. Mr. Speaker, sir, some of them are in so much deplorable situations. A number of them are blind. A number of them lost their limbs. A number of them suffer long-term medical conditions. And the reason why we have come to ask for an extension is that the attention of this committee has been so massive. Each time we are meeting the stakeholders, Honorable Speaker, it is so overwhelming because we have to listen to all of them. And Honorable Speaker, I think they deserve the listening from this committee of the Senate. Honorable Speaker, we have also been dealing with, apart from loss of life and the massive injuries that were caused, we are also looking at the compensation of loss of opportunities. In our sitting, Honorable Speaker, sometimes you have to listen to children that dropped out of school because their parents died out of this happening. And so, Honorable Speaker, we ask that the extension may be granted so that we give due diligence to Kenyans who need the attention of the committee. And Honorable Speaker, this bomb blast happening that we are dealing with is also going to set a precedent for other happenings that have occurred in this country. We had After that, the Westgate, the Garissa Technical School bombing, we have the Dusit. And Honorable Speaker, if this is handled well and within the time that we are asking for, this will also give a solution to some of those bomb happenings that have had in this country. Honorable Speaker, we are yet also to exhaust our
Senator
meetings.
Beatrice, I had given directives earlier on that this is a procedural motion. Let's limit our arguments in support of the motion.
Thank you.
I want to ask you to end at that point so that we progress.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, I'm well guided. And so as I end, I want to support the motion and to appeal to the House to support the extension of the time. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Lastly, Senator John Kinyua.
Asante Bwana Spika. Kwanzia mwanzo nasema ya kwamba naunga mkono kuongeza muda wa kamati hii ya dharura kwa siku 100. Bwana Spika, nimeangalia na nikaona shughuli ambazo wamekuwa wakiziangazia Bwana Spika. Wamekutana Bwana Spika na Wizara ya Afya, Wizara ya mambo ya masuala ya nje, na hata wamekutana na Wizara ya mambo za kindani Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, lakini ni vizuri tuseme ya kwamba muda huu ambao wameuliza Bwana Spika wautumie vizuri, wasije tena kuja hapa kusema wangetaka ongezewe siku Bwana Spika, kwa sababu mambo waliyofanya wamewafanya na zaidi ya siku 165 Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, haya mambo machache ambayo yamebaki wanayotaka siku 100 Bwana Spika, najua inawezekana Bwana Spika, kwa sababu wanasema wanataka kukutana na mkuu wa sheria, wanataka kukutana Bwana Spika na balozi wa nchi ya Marekani Bwana Spika. Vile vile Bwana Spika, wanataka kutembelea nchi ya Amerika ndio waweze kwenda kukutana na seneti ya Amerika Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo hizo siku 100 zitatosha Bwana Spika, ndio waweze kushughulikia Wakenya ambao waliadhiriwa, na vile vile wapate fidia wale ambao tayari walikufa, wale watu wanaotajwa zaidi ya watu 200 Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo nataka kuwapongeza hii kamati kwa kazi nzuri wanayofanya, lakini Bwana Spika, wasiongeze siku kupita hizo siku 100 ambazo ameitisha, kwa sababu ni mambo machache sana yaliyobaki Bwana Spika, na hatutakataa kwa sababu Bwana Spika tayari wamemkula ng'ombe, iliyobaki ni mkia Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo hizo siku 100 zitabaki, waweze kumaliza mkia na waweze kuleta ripoti na Wakenya wetu waweze kushughulikiwa. Bwana Spika, na kubali na naunga mkono. Asante Bwana Spika.
Thank you. Senator John Methu.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to also grudgingly support the extension of time for this committee. And I'm not persuaded by the reasons that were given by Senator Mungatana, of course, because his own committee sought extension 4 times. During the Shakahola,
Senator Mungatana, what's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, this is a house of record. I wanted the Honorable Senator Methu to actually be factual. We only sought extension once, not 4 times. If 4 times you would not have accepted, surely it's not possible. So just be focused.
Make sure your contributions are
okay, very well.
supported.
Then he sought extension 1 time. So, Honorable Speaker, as I support, I actually have been following up on this particular matter that is being dealt by the Senator Agnes Kavindu-led committee. And I've seen the strides that they have made. And I actually feel that they require a little more time. And I hope, just as the Senator for Laikipia said, this shall be the last extension that they are seeking so they can be able to fundraise on all the stakeholders that they require to look at and also finalize on the report so that as a House we can get a conclusive report. I support, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Senators, that brings us to the end of the contributions by the members on this particular motion, and I make a determination that this is a matter that does not affect counties, and I now put the question that Honorable Senators, aware that the sitting of the Senate held on Thursday, 27th June 2023, Senator Joyce, you may take your seat. Matthew, take your seat as well. Honorable Senators, aware that at the sitting of the Senate held on Thursday, 27 June 2023, the Senate resolved to establish an ad hoc committee to investigate the compensation to the Kenyan victims of the 1998 bombing of the United States of America Embassy in Nairobi and report back to the House within 3 months of its establishment, realizing that the extension period of 45 days of the tenure of the ad hoc committee lapsed on 10th November 2023, yet the committee has a lot of ad hoc committee for a further period of 100 days from 10th November 2023 to enable the committee to finalize and table its report in the Senate on or before 18th of February 2024. Honorable members, will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Clerk, you may call the next order.
Order number 8, motion, debate on the President's address to Parliament, second day.
Honorable members, I believe there was no one who was left out in the last session unless right, I am notified that Senator Ali Roba had concluded on his debate on the speech, and I will invite Senator Cherargei Samson to proceed from there.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity. From the onset, I want to thank you for fast-tracking the House business despite the earlier hiccups. And you know, I don't have a doubt in your ability because when things were thick, you represented me in court those days when we were in trenches of fighting to ensure Kenya Kwanza wins. And out of my blessings, you went on and become the senator of Bomet. So, Mr. Speaker, another issue I wanted to bring to the attention of the House, I know there will be proper communication, is I want to thank the courts of law. Courts of law, I don't know what is wrong. Is it the blessings or you becoming the senator?
Point of order from Senator Kinyua.
Mr. Speaker, I listened to the most sought lawyer in town, Senator Cherargei, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, does he insinuate, because Senator Yusuf Haji, who is also, who sits in Speaker's panel, because he did not represent him when he was in trenches, is not a good speaker, Mr. Speaker?
Well, what's your point of order, Senator Boni?
Mr. Speaker, did you hear the senator of Nandi say that without his blessings, you would not be here today? Mr. Speaker, not using exactly the same words, but words to that effect. Mr. Speaker, I know him as a distinguished senator, an outstanding legal mind, but with no religious Mr. Speaker, can a man who has no track record of even preaching once, even to a Sunday school, have the capacity to bless the distinguished senator of Bomet.
Senator Cherege, you may clarify the point of order by Senator Kinyua in terms of the insinuation that you made, as well as the comments and the point of intervention by Senator Halwale. Senator Chetumo, just hold. Let's deal with that bit
Mr.
first.
Speaker, I said it's one of the blessings. Some of the people who gave you blessings. Number two, I'm not saying other panelists. Yes, and other panelists are good people, even the substantive speaker. And Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, in our Kalenjin community, I come from the Nandi where Koitalel Samoy was there. You remember when we took President William Ruto for blessings by the Koitalel and Tala elders, his roads were open and he's now the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya. So, Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I hope my time is frozen.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, you know, I don't know whether it will still be relevant because I heard my colleague here referring to a member here as Yusuf Haji. Do we have a senator by that name, Mr. Speaker?
I let that pass. Cherege, proceed.
He's the son of our former senator, but he's now Senator Abdullaji. So, Speaker, secondly, I want to bring to the attention of the House as I debate this, that one of the hallmarks in this House is where we amended the standing orders to allow cabinet secretaries to appear, and we sat in parliamentary group, and we had the blessings of the president. I'm happy, and I want to congratulate courts of law. They have dismissed a petition of our colleagues in the minority side, the Azimio senators, as lacking merit. And I am happy that finally they have come back to the House, because whenever we question the cabinet secretaries, our colleagues in the minority side have not been able to attend because they had a petition in court. I'm happy that matter is settled and the courts dismissed the petition that it does not have merit. So I hope we shall not be taking matters to court that are frivolous or do not have a merit. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the president because as per the tradition and constitution, Mr. Speaker, the president has done tremendously well. Despite the challenges, Mr. Speaker, you know, the economy was in ICU, Mr. Speaker, because of many challenges. All of us know that the public debt is way above 10 trillion Kenyan shillings. We know there was issues of extrajudicial killings, which the president came. In people who deal with the business, the fact that there is sweets on the street, Mr. Speaker. We want to see the Chief Justice, Mada Koome, and other judges. Mr. Speaker, you know, in this country, we risk reducing justice to the highest bidder. And it is very unfortunate. I want to challenge, because, Mr. Speaker, judiciary should not be a bastion or a dent of corruption where court orders, Mr. Speaker, are being issued like tissue papers on the streets, Mr. Speaker. We must, as a country, if we give more resources, Mr. Speaker, to judiciary, they must stand with the truth and justice. Just the way our holy books, Quran and the Bible and other religious books talk of, Mr. Speaker. So we need judiciary to be held accountable, Mr. Speaker. They must be. We need judiciary, Mr. Speaker, to push for justice of the local people. Mr. Speaker, how do you explain there are cases that are in judiciary? I know we have backlog of cases around 500,000 cases every year being filed by Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. But how can Chief Justice Martha Koome and judiciary explain to the country, Mr. Speaker? And in fact, in future, we should be calling state of address of judiciary, because it's an independent arm of government, to tell us what they are doing, Mr. Speaker. Because how do you have a court case which is 10 years, 5 years old? Some of them are succession matters that can be determined on a matter of technicality and procedure, Mr. Speaker. So in as much as there is goodwill from the President, the Judicial Service Commission also must rein on rogue judicial officers. Mr. Speaker, I've been the biggest defender of judiciary. In fact, I brought a statement when Salaries and Remuneration Commission wanted to reduce the salaries and emoluments of judiciary, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, they didn't, I am a supporter of judiciary, but we must call out corruption in judiciary, Mr. Speaker. And I like Ahmed Nasir Abdullah, Mr. Speaker, Senior Counsel, who has been consistent in calling out judiciary corruption. And we don't need to institutionalize corruption, Mr. Speaker. Those judges who had been caught participating in corruption, and magistrates and judicial officers, they must be fired. Not only fired, they must be subjected to judicial process so that we get rid and clean judiciary, Mr. Speaker, so that we don't see ending. And Mr. Speaker, and I think addition to that, Mr. Speaker, the other issue is the issue of farmers. I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the President, Mr. Speaker, when he took over government, the fertilizer cost was 7,000 shillings. In last planting season, we bought at 3,500. Now, Mr. Speaker, we are buying fertilizer to 2,500, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and this fertilizer will be given to farmers of maize, farmers of tea, coffee, sugarcane, and all the farmers, this subsidized fertilizer through the National Cereals and Produce Board. I want to thank the Minister of Agriculture, Senator Mithika Linturi, for spearheading distribution of subsidized fertilizer, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my only challenge, I don't know other counties, but in Nandi, you know, Nandi, we are at autopilot. The management of county government of Nandi is autopilot. Because in Nandi, after getting the subsidy program, I expected the Nandi county governor and the county government, Mr. Sang, to do what we call last mile distribution of fertilizer, so that the fertilizer, they don't need to go to Lesos NCPP depot, or Mosoriat NCPP depot, or Celia NCPP depot, or Kobuja NCPP depot. So, Speaker, we needed county government of Nandi to do what we call last mile distribution of fertilizer, so that it becomes easy for farmers and save transport costs, noting that the cost of fuel is quite high, Mr. Speaker. So, and I want to thank the President. We now have dryers, maize dryers now. I want to inform farmers from where we come across the country, because we harvested when it was raining, Mr. Speaker, and to avoid the issue of aflatoxin, the dryers have been provided at 70 shillings from 300 shillings per bag, Mr. Speaker. There are mobile dryers and others, Mr. Speaker. So on the sector of agriculture, Mr. Speaker, finally, I want on the issue of agriculture, I want to thank the President and also the Deputy President, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, because he has been reading the reforms in the coffee sector, in the tea sector, Mr. Speaker, and he has been reading reforms in the milk sector, Mr. Speaker. One of the issue of disappointment, Mr. Speaker, and I know the President is watching and government, is we have a problem because 1 liter of milk has fallen down to 32 shillings per liter, Mr. Speaker. We want at least 50 shillings of milk per liter so that farmers can get value. Mr. Speaker, I want to, and in fact, even on the coffee cherry fund, I want to request, and I know His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua on the reforms of coffee sector should ensure through coffee cherry fund, Mr. Speaker, that all counties got it. In the last session, and we sat with you in the last session, we got 10 billion shillings through coffee cherry fund, but Nandi did not get it. Yet we have Coffee, I went to Cabaret Farmers Cooperative Society. I went to Kipsiele, Mr. Speaker, a Kipsiele Cooperative Society in Tindred. There are many cooperative societies in Tindred, up to Soba, all over Tindred. Almost the entire of Nandi is growing coffee. We want in this coffee cherry fund, Nandi County to be included. And I want to thank the government for increasing coffee, 1 kilo of coffee from 20 shillings to 80 shillings. And I want to continue encouraging Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua to continue facing on the coffee and agricultural sector cartels who continue to threaten, Mr. Speaker, our farmers. And he should not fear, he should fear nothing. But Mr. Speaker, as a Christian, they always say, fear those who kill the soul, but don't fear who killed the body, Mr. Speaker. So I hope those reforms that the Deputy President will carry on in the agricultural sector, who has the blessings of the President, we shall be able to get value. Mr. Speaker, another issue is sugarcane. And Senator Eddy should be excited, Mr. Speaker, because the government has waived 117 billion to sugar factories that are owned by government. This will give a new lease of life, Mr. Speaker, to Mumias, to Chemelil, to Nzoia Sugar, all the sugar sector. 117 billion. And most of those regions, Mr. Speaker, are occupied by Azimio supporters. So you can see the president is non-discriminative in giving development across the country, Mr. Speaker. And then 1.07 billion will be paid to farmers of sugarcane. I know that Christmas will come early from the people from those regions, Mr. Speaker. I want to encourage them to use that 1.07 billion being paid to farmers to advance their planting. I don't want to see them adding more wives, adding more children, Mr. Speaker, or buying new toys or new cars or anything, Mr. Speaker, but be used in that aspect, Mr. Speaker. So on the agricultural front, because I just wanted to summarize on the agricultural front, Mr. Speaker, that is very important. And as farmers, we are very grateful to what the plan. And for us, Mr. Speaker, I want to encourage, even on our side, both minority and majority side, please find time to read our manifesto. I've always seen people commenting on issues where they have not read our manifesto. The plan is very clear. It's about the people. And finally, on the implementation on the issue of fishing landing site, Mr. Speaker, we need to ensure that there are fishing landing sites, like in Nyanza and coast regions. These are areas that voted against William Ruto in 2022 general election, Mr. Speaker. But these are the areas that the president has not in any way discriminated in terms of development. As we talk, Nyanza and coastal regions are getting fishing landing site, which shows the president is not discriminative to any region in terms of the. Mr. Speaker, finally on agriculture is on the issue of post-harvest. I want to ask you, when you go to Nyandarua, where our brother comes from, we normally lose, even in my county, Mr. Speaker, we have a lot of milk, what we call milk clot. We don't want to see when there's milk clot or ndengu from Machakos or Kitui, or potatoes from Nyandarua and other areas, or milk from Nandi and other areas. We want to ensure, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of Asala Fund, I want to continue to encourage Kenyans to use this revolutionary for all of us, Mr. Speaker. We must be ready as a country to use the Asala Fund and be ready to ensure saving. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of NHIF, we agree with the president that the reforms in the NHIF sector or universal health coverage should be taken at top notch. I want to thank President for community health promoters, so that, you know, Mr. Speaker, apart from food, the next highest spending item of any family is on the issue of healthcare. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank, because now you'll have a health promoter coming to your house. They ensure they PMI you, they ensure, Mr. Speaker, so that you are able, Mr. Speaker, to live a good life, Mr. Speaker. And there is a song reggae talks about, there is I think a famous singer, I'm forgetting the name, he sung about imagine if things were this good. That's a reggae song, Mr. Speaker. For those people who like listening to the reggae, Mr. Speaker, they can agree that imagine good things will be with Kenya Kwanza government led by William Ruto, Mr. Speaker. And transforming education, Mr. Speaker, because I can see my time is up. Let us continue transforming education. We want to see CBC programs being quickly addressed, Mr. Speaker. The digitization of government, finally, I want to thank Professor Kithure Kindiki, and for the comfort of the House, the Ministry of Interior led by Professor Kithure Kindiki has revoked licenses on the issue of charges on IDs, birth certificates, death certificates. People who are coming, when you go and get married outside the country, come with your children, Mr. Speaker. These things have continued to be reviewed, Mr. Speaker, going into the future. So I want to thank the Ministry of Interior for revoking that Gazette notice so that the ordinary Kenyans can get services at affordable rate, Mr. Speaker. And you know, Mr. Speaker, you cannot levy tax without public participation and without parliamentary approval. I agree with Professor Kinture Kindiki that public participation should be done going into the future. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask Kenyans to give time to President William Ruto. In the next 1 year, this country will be a land, will be like Canaan, land of honey and milk, where every Kenyan will be able to afford a decent meal, where every Kenyan will be able to take their children to school, where every Kenyan will go, Mr. Speaker. Finally, I want to appeal to cabinet secretaries and senior government officials. Let them stop doing politics. The president has given them opportunity to serve the nation. Let them serve the nation. Politics for politicians. If you are a cabinet secretary, if you are a senior civil servant, stick to your lane and deliver. If you are given to do roads, do roads. Don't go and launch footballs in some funny areas, Mr. Speaker. So I want to challenge the cabinet secretaries and senior government officials, assist the president in delivering this agenda going into the future, Mr. Speaker, so that as a country, we can be able to move forward. Because the president has given us the direction, Mr. Speaker, so that we are given a certain direction, Mr. Speaker. We don't want to sing the song, I think it was by Lucky Dube. When you look outside the window, do you see anything to smile about? We don't want to listen to that song. We want, when you look outside the window, to paraphrase the reggae song, Mr. Speaker, you see everything to smile about. Mr. Speaker, I congratulate the president and I support the motion.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Eddie Okech.
Don't start interruptions here. Mr. Speaker, it is with really a lot of humility that I even get a chance to, just comment, pass a few comments on the president's speech, which is a requirement of him under the Constitution, Article 132 of our Constitution. I think this will be the second time that we as a House are reflecting on the speech of the president. And Mr. Speaker, we cannot reflect on this speech without recognizing that the first speech was a promise speech, so that when the president was going to address the country in the second speech, then it goes without saying that it was a scorecard on the things that the president did promise on, which I'm glad that the Senator of Nandi has actually encapsulated that as an issue of the manifesto. And Mr. Speaker, that manifesto had very specific, very specific milestones and agenda that was sold to this nation, which was reiterated when the president gave his first speech to Parliament. I'm glad to see that in line 7 of his speech, Mr. Speaker, the president started attempting to give the nation an apology for not being able to meet those promises. Because in that line, Mr. Speaker, the president gives a very clear excuse of why these particular issues have not been met. He says in his own mouth that in our plan, we identified 3 primary challenges: external shocks, physical distress, and structural imbalances that heavily strained our economy, causing nationwide it's not working. Senator Cherargei has stood here and also intimated some of them. Yesterday, I saw here, Mr. Speaker, when the whip was moving this motion, saying very well that the reason as to why the dollar has gone higher is because Americans, the American citizens, were given dollars so that they could keep. I mean, Mr. Speaker, as that was happening in this house, Mr. Speaker, in the other house, the central bank governor was appearing in that house. Ask the same question. They are working for the same government. Ask the same question. The central bank governor said that the reason why the dollar is struggling, Mr. Speaker, is because there are no tourists coming to Kenya. So we have got 3 different people in the same government not understanding why we as a country are having a problem with the dollar. And Mr. Speaker, this kind of confusion in this regime that also reflects on the president's speech is an important one to assess, because in every single bit of the promises that the president gave, there is different numbers, different excuses that are not in line with what Kenyans are speaking. Let me start with the speaker with the issue of education. Mr. Speaker, as the president was reaffirming his commitment to education, as we speak right now, Mr. Speaker, our kids in university, the students in the universities, in nearly all the universities, haven't received their money in help, and even if it was a grant, they haven't received them to an extent that children from Nandi are sleeping in verandas without even food. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the issue of secondary school education, Mr. Speaker.
One moment, Eddie. What is your point of order, Senator Cherargei?
Mr. Speaker, Senator Eddy should have learned standing order number 105 on responsibility of facts. Higher Education Loan Board was released 2 weeks ago. Is it in order, Mr. Speaker, with tremendous respect to my young brother, to mislead the country that money meant for Higher Education Loan Board has been released, Mr. Speaker? And if he has a contrary to that, he should substantiate and table that information before the House, because it might be good to make quick political gains, but it's not convenient to lie to the House, Mr. Speaker. Is it in order not lie, but mislead the House, Mr. Speaker?
Senator Eddie, are you able to substantiate the information on help?
Mr. Speaker, I think I've got a responsibility to always bring facts to this House, and also have a responsibility to educate lawyers who do not know numbers. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, you give me until the end of the week, I'll fashion this House with that data, because I'll be talking about so much data here that Cherargei might collapse hearing data, because he doesn't understand these numbers. Senator Cherargei, I want to tell Senator Cherargei through you, Mr. Speaker, that when he was speaking, I was listening. Sometimes you were given one mouth and 2 ears so that we listen more. And I listened to these numbers. So let him digest the numbers. If they are contrary, I'll wish him the courage to also be in touch with everything that's happening. Because Mr. Speaker, for instance, I was going to the issue of the secondary school education, Mr. Speaker. When Uhuru Kenyatta left, President Uhuru Kenyatta left this country, Mr. Speaker, the capitation for secondary school education was such that the cost of tuition was 22,000. And by the time the president was leaving, everybody was getting their money. Today, in our economy, Mr. Speaker, we have 4 million students who are secondary school students. He knows very well that the president, for capitation, has only released 65 billion. If you are to divide that by 4 million students, then it means that the students today are only getting 16 billion. That means that every single parent has to pay 6,000 more on that capitation gap that we have. It's a problem, Mr. Speaker, and our children are suffering. Mr. Speaker, the JSS that has been brought today, 95% of the schools that we have in our country, Mr. Speaker, do not have money for infrastructural improvement that can be able to meet the demand of JSS, Mr. Speaker. While parents are struggling to pay for capitation gaps in this country, Mr. Speaker, the same parents are forced, Mr. Speaker, to fundraise to be able to buy desks, to fundraise to be able to build classrooms, to fundraise to buy books for their children, to fundraise, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Eddie, there is a point of order from Senator Cherargei.
I'm coming back from you.
Mr. Speaker, do you listen to the senator threatening the House? Mr. Speaker, Senator Standing Order 105, Mr. Speaker, on responsibility of fact again. That is why I want to advise Eddie to also be listening more and talking less. Because the area member of parliament where he comes from, under the JSS program, the CDF, the work of the CDF is to improve school infrastructure. And even through, and it is a common knowledge. I thought these are basic things that you should be aware of, Mr. Speaker, because under the CDF, it is the work of the CDF to improve and develop infrastructure that we have. So is it in order, understanding order 105, Mr. Speaker, to mislead the House and say that the president instead, and you know CDF, Mr. Speaker, is given to all legislators, both on the minority and majority side. Unless there are MPs in Migori or where he comes from. Which constituency do you come from, Senator Eddie? You should share with the House, Mr. Speaker. It's the infrastructure improvement should be done by CDM, Mr. Speaker. And I'm always willing to mentor him and guide him where he gets the way wrong.
Senator Eddy, I presume you stand guided by Senator Cherogei's statement.
Mr. Speaker, I think that is also in order to sometimes also refer to Standing Order number 126 on what constitutes a frivolous point of order, Mr. Speaker. Because I think Senator Cherogei is just concerned that this factor might be putting his some serious high pedestal on the president, and therefore won't just come with any point of order. Mr. Speaker, the way CDF works in this country, the CDF has always been limited. Okay, even right now, Mr. Speaker, the highest a member is getting on CDF is 145 million, Mr. Speaker. With the kind of budget that had been pushed forward to be given to JSS, Mr. Speaker, it is actually about 65%, gap that needs to be put on GSS, Mr. Speaker, which is why, Mr. Speaker, we are trying to advise that.
Senator Methu, what is your point of order?
Thank you very
I
much.
hope you're holding my time, Mr. Speaker, because this part of the government is now becoming very
Your
notorious on
time
this
is-
point of order.
your time is stopped.
And they can help the country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would not have wanted to interrupt my good friend, Senator Eddy. And because this is a house of record, and me and him are new senators, so we are running, I think it is fair to say that he has quoted a standing order that what he has said and what is in the standing orders is different. He has quoted standing order 126 that constitutes a frivolous standing order, and what is in 126 is action to be taken on refusal to withdraw. It has nothing to do with a frivolous standing order, point of order. So for purposes of his knowledge, he can read and quote the right point of order.
Mr. Speaker, there is something called a slip of the tongue. The standing order that I meant was 121 on false standing orders. And I'm glad that the senator who has brought it up is the senator who has also struggled with the slip of tongue all the time. Catching up with English has been very difficult, but now he has acclimatized to the language of the Queen in the House. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to also talk about the issue of borrowing, and Mr. Speaker, I hope you're holding my time because this point of order have been so many. Mr. Speaker, the president talked about the issue of borrowing and the way he's struggling with the issue of borrowing, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Bonikalwale, what is your point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, standing order number 105 demands that members must take responsibility for the factuality of their statements. On Friday, Mr. Speaker, the PS released 16.9 billion shillings, being money for capitation. Mr. Speaker, this is part of the 89.4 billion shillings, money set aside by the government to address the issue of capitation. The Senator for Nandi has correctly informed the Senator of Migori that CDF has the responsibility to help in upgrading the classrooms. And I put it further to him, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the policy of the president and his government is that CDF creates a partnership with the ministry to address the issue of JSSS. Is in order to mislead the country and incite members of the unsuspecting members of the public that this government is not able to roll out CBC? When the facts are there, I've told you 89.4. Friday, 16.9 was released. Every member of parliament, not 135, but up to 170 million shillings per constituency. Even if you don't like President Ruto, at least give him credit for what he has done. If you must campaign using facts, then use the correct facts. Is he in order, Mr. Speaker? Can he withdraw and apologize? Failing which, can he then substantiate by tabling alternative figures?
Senator Eddy, what will it be? Are you going to substantiate or correct your statement or and your data?
Mr. Speaker, the senator for Kakamega was almost lynched in Malinya Market, where his own mother buys sugar in that market because of the students that are struggling in that area. Mr. Speaker, I'm still responding to this point of order. Just be patient. Mr. Speaker, can I respond to this point of order? Mr. Speaker, and it's not me who said, the senator for Kakamega said it on this floor.
One moment. What's your point of
No,
order?
but Mr. Speaker, I just want one point of order.
You're going to
Speaker,
you will
standing
respond.
order,
Mr. Speaker.
You'll
Mr.
respond on
Speaker,
both.
standing order number 93, or is it, sorry, 98, a point of order is not a privilege. It is a right in our standing orders for the information. Standing order 103 and 105 and 110, Mr. Speaker, it is not good, and in order to disparage the name of the good senator. Senator Boni Khalwale is a senior politician in this country. Yes. The time he has had in politics is more than your age, Senator Eddy, with all due respect. Mr. Speaker, is it in order? Is it in order? I'm asking my standing, Mr. Speaker, is it in order for the good senator of Migori to disparage the good name of Senator Khalwale? Yet we know in Malinya, the Senator Khalwale enjoys the status of godly-like. In that village, Mr. Speaker, is it in order to say he was lynched? And Mr. Speaker, finally, can he provide an OB to show that that matter was reported in a police station, to show that Senator Khalwale was almost lynched, because that's a serious issue? Can he bring an OB number?
Senator Cherargei.
Mr. Speaker,
Let us give Eddy to give his submissions.
no, I know Mr. Cherargei is trying to help the president by deconstructing my thought processes, but he should also not bring his, Mr. Speaker, the word ignorance is not any bad word to use when somebody doesn't know
Senator
something.
Eddy, if I may guide you, please clarify on the issue of capitation.
I will, Mr. Speaker,
as directed by
my
Senator
character has been assassinated here, Mr. Speaker, because when I talked about the issue of heckling and almost the lynching scenario in Malinya, it is not me who said. It is Senator Boni Khalwale who stood in front of this house yesterday and said it. It's not me who said. So it is upon the Senator of Nandi to make sure that he is responsible member who comes to this house and listens to what people say. And in fact, I empathize with Senator Boni Khalwale because he was echoed for the first time. He's a fine leader, but he was echoed on the basis that the economic times are hard in this country. He accepted it. And Mr. Speaker, on the issue of capitation, he who alleges, Mr. Speaker, the last in house will tell you, has got the fundamental responsibility to also be able to give us his evidence. You cannot question my facts and saying that my facts should be tabled in the house, and then you give a counterfacts which haven't tabled in the house. If you feel that my facts are wrong, bring your facts in the house so that we look them against my facts. So, Mr. Speaker, I will bring my facts. I've also stated. So I'll bring my facts in the house and then allow Boni also, Mr. Speaker, and to make a ruling on this, that Senator Boni Khalwale must also bring his facts against my facts in this house. Mr. Speaker, I was talking about the issue of borrowing, and I hope that my time now starts at 15 minutes that I still have. Mr. Speaker, no, because you have been interrupting me, you don't want to listen to the truth. Mr. Speaker, the president talked very squarely about the issue of borrowing, which has been a serious burden to this house and to the nation.
Senator
And Mr.
Cherargei,
Speaker,
let's allow Senator Eddy to be heard in silence.
Mr. Speaker,
let's hear him first.
Protect me.
What is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, protect me. Otherwise, we cannot have
Mr.
debate with
Speaker, under standing order number 98, a point of order I want to insist is a right and is part of the standing orders. Mr. Speaker, have you heard it saying he who alleges must prove? In the standard of criminal probabilities, you prove beyond reasonable doubt. In standard of civil is based on probabilities, Mr. Speaker. Is it in order for Senator Eddy to misdirect your ruling where you had ruled that he should be the one to substantiate? Now he's moving pattern of substantiating to Senator Kalwala, Mr. Speaker. Is he challenging your ruling, Mr. Speaker? Is it in order to revise your ruling? Does our standing orders and constitution allow us to challenge the Speaker's ruling, yet you have told him to come and substantiate? It's not about Senator Kalwala. Is it
Very
in order,
well.
Mr. Speaker, sir?
Very well, Senator Cherugei. Senator Eddy, you may proceed, but I think you did mention that you're going to substantiate your information and data next week on Tuesday.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Tuesday next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you happy now? Okay. Now, happily listen to my submissions here. Mr. Speaker, the president talked about borrowing in this country, Mr. Speaker. When President Uhuru Kenyatta left this country, Mr. Speaker, the commercial borrowing interest rate was averaging 14%. As he was doing his submission, Mr. Speaker, last week, the government had issued institutional bonds at 17%. If you issue infrastructure bond at 17%, Mr. Speaker, there is no way commercial banks will de-risk their capital in this country by giving anything under, Mr. Speaker. Such that this has forced our economy right now that if the banks were to give any loans to any of these small businesses that the government really wants to help, it is now averaging 24%, Mr. Speaker. This is now really serious crowding out of businesses. Businesses cannot get a chance to grow, Mr. Speaker, because of this same kind of heavy borrowing we are seeing, Mr. Speaker. When BPS was moved earlier sometimes this year, Mr. Speaker, the deficit that we had as a country, Mr. Speaker, was 700 billion. And I know this because we sit with the senior senator of Kakamega, Boni Alwale, and together with him, we did criticize, Mr. Speaker, my time is still not, you're protecting me on the time. Mr. Speaker, we did criticize the issue of high deficit. As we speak right now, Mr. Speaker, the president has borrowed 1.2 trillion, way above the deficit of this country, Mr. Speaker. Then you again stand before the House and say you're going to deal with the crowding out. This kind of juxtaposition of a statement from the president, Mr. Speaker, is worrisome. Mr. Speaker, the president talked about the issue of subsidy, which is consistent to the claim that the president had made in the beginning of the year that it is very important that the country subsidizes production and not consumption, Mr. Speaker. And the issue of fertilizer, Mr. Speaker.
What is your point of order, Boni Kalwale?
I'm sorry to appear like I'm interrupting the distinguished senator. Mr. Speaker, he is alleging that the president has borrowed 1.2 trillion shillings. Trillion. He's an economist and he knows what it means by 1.2 trillion. Could you please help this house, carry the public by tabling here evidence showing the 1.2 trillion shillings that the president has borrowed? You can't make here sweeping populist statements that suit the opposition politics as if President William Ruto is an irresponsible leader. When he spoke to this issue, it was clear he only limited himself to the fact that the Eurobond, which was 2 billion shillings, he was going to repay next month at 300 million shillings. So if Eurobond was 2 billion, and he has not talked about any bond, Eurobond, China bond, or whatever bond, was 2 billion, about 1.2 trillion. If you must lie, lie with facts. Lie reasonably. Lie with a degree of intelligence.
Point of order on who? Senator Muma.
Honorable Speaker, allow me to raise a point of order on the process that's going on. Mr. Speaker, I feel the use of point of orders to disrupt needs to be ruled upon. Mr. Speaker, there are members in this House who are actually, through the point of order, violating standing order number 97, getting to speak more than once on this issue by calling on points of orders and then proceeding to seem to discuss on issues that people have raised. Mr. Speaker, we need to stop that.
Senator Muma, the point of order that you've cited says no senator shall speak more than once to a question. It does not refer to more than once in a point of order. Point of order, any senator may raise a point of order at any time during a member's speech. So your point of order does not stand. Senator Eddy, there's the issue that Senator Boni Kalwale has raised in proving substantiating the fact that the president has borrowed 1.2 trillion. Can you respond to that and let us know if you're able to substantiate it, and will you table it with the other data?
Mr. Speaker, a senior member of this House questioning my facts, and in questioning my facts, goes ahead and says that this country has got a Eurobond worth 2 billion, and then is challenging me to prove numbers. Seriously, Mr. Speaker? Seriously? That Honorable Boni Kalwale, Senator of Kakamega,
yes.
Mr. Speaker, even before the point of order, Mr. Speaker, there is another point of order. Was this a strategy from the government side so that they can run away from my facts and from telling them what Kenyans are feeling today?
Senator,
you know,
Senator Eddy. Order, Senator Eddy. Senator Eddy, order. Eddy. What's your point of order, Senator Cheptumo?
So, Speaker, you know I rarely interrupt members. I only do so when it is absolutely necessary. Mr. Speaker, you gave some directions, very clear, for Senator Fomikori to be able to explain his position. Instead of doing so, Mr. Speaker, is again going ahead to look like challenging your decision. Mr. Speaker, I think it is only fair. This is a house of rules, of order, of record. Whoever alleges, Mr. Speaker, and I think that is what Honorable Kalwale was talking to, that proves that what you are talking about, you have the facts. And Mr. Speaker, I think already you've told him to be able to, he is able to do that, I think next week or something, from the other issues I've raised. If he doesn't have the facts now, he can be given time. But Mr. Speaker, we are losing time. I want to speak to this motion and many other members, Mr. Speaker. I think, Mr. Speaker, as much as we have that right under the standing orders, I think also we should spend our time optimally so that we move forward. But my colleague here should be able, Mr. Speaker, to explain his position, not only alleging, but able to prove what he's saying.
Senator Cheptumo, I think if you had given him time, he would have probably responded. He was just making his introductory remarks. So let us give him time, and we see if he's going to substantiate or not. Senator Eddy.
Mr. Speaker, where Senator Boni Kalwale feels like my fact is wrong against his facts, I promise that next week I will avail it in the House. Is that satisfactory? So that you can rule this, so I can finish my presentation. Mr. Speaker, Mr. President did talk very heavily on the issue of on the issue of farm input. That's what I was talking about, Mr. Speaker, and the concept has always been that, and the argument has always been that you subsidize production and not consumption, Mr. Speaker, which is probably a brilliant concept. But Mr. Speaker, the reality is this: when you say that you have subsidized fertilizer, such that fertilizer prices have come from 6,500 to 2,500, which is a fact. Mr. Speaker, I have called everywhere in Migori County. There is nowhere that fertilizer goes for 2,500. And I'll tell you the reason why, Bonnie. Number two, Mr. Speaker, we had Senate Mashinani in Turkana. When you go to Turkana, we went to a place called Kitili in irrigation mine, in irrigation farms. There is nowhere among those farmers are getting fertilizer for 2,500. And the reason is very simple, Bonnie. When you decide to say that you're subsidizing fertilizer, and constantly the cost of petrol and fuel keeps on going higher, the other inputs get affected, including the cost of vehicles that are supposed to go to a place like Lokicha to take that fertilizer down there. That is why there is an increased price of fertilizers, despite the fact that you claim subsidy, Mr. Speaker. And in any case, fertilizer is not the only subsidized input that the country needs, Mr. Speaker. The people from the lake where I come from, the people of Migori, the people of Siaya, the people of Homa Bay, are serious fish farmers, Mr. Speaker. When you put something like cost of fuel to be very high, it affects them directly, Mr. Speaker. As we speak now, Mr. Speaker, the shilling is extremely performing poorly against other currencies, Mr. Speaker. As we speak right now, Mr. Speaker, Uganda has just decided to buy its oil directly and not through Kenya, Mr. Speaker. When Uhuru Kenyatta was leaving, Mr. Speaker, the Kenya shillings was trading at 32 shillings against the Ugandan shillings. Right now, it is 25 shillings, Mr. Speaker. The Tanzanian shillings is now stronger than it was when Uhuru Kenyatta was leaving, Mr. Speaker. And in any case, Bonnie Alole wants to know that the people who grow tea in this country, today the auctioning of tea has now shifted to Tanzania instead of what was happening in Mombasa. Mr. Speaker, the economy is doing bad. And for the purposes of the one man who believes in God, President Ruto, and his troops like Senator Boni Alwale, the book of John, chapter 21, verse 3, says that when Jesus Christ had been arrested, crucified, and died, his disciples felt broken. They felt broken because they had nothing to do, nothing else to do. They went back to fish. And in the third day when Jesus arose from the dead, he came back and told them, when you are most broken, that is when God is near you. The people of Kenya today, we are telling you, Ruto has broken our spirits. Ruto has broken the future of our children. President Ruto has broken the hopes and the dreams of our people. And I can tell you that even if he insists through these speeches and this frivolous point of orders, Mr. Speaker, the country will move forward because now as a people, our hands is in our Lord Jesus Christ. Our hands is in the hand of God.
Eddie, Senator Cheptumo, what's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, is the member really debating this statement? He is converting, Mr. Speaker, this house to a political rally. Mr. Speaker, this statement is a clear expression of the plans that the head of state has for this country. And Mr. Speaker, for the member to appear to dismiss every proposal, every statement in this statement, Mr. Speaker, is unfair, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a house of debate. Let us be objective in our discussion, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think my colleague is overstepping Mr. Speaker, because
Senator Cheptumo,
he is attacking the person of the president, Mr. Speaker.
What standing order are you standing
Mr. Speaker,
on?
I've said what I've said.
Senator Mungatana, what's your point of order?
Speaker, I'm standing on standing order number 105. I'm asking the honorable senator from Migori, who is a very good and upcoming senator. When he generalizes and says Ruto has, first of all, is it the president or who is he talking about? when he says he has broken this dream of the child, this dream of the, is it in order, Mr. Speaker, to make such sweeping allegations without a substantive, first of all, discussing the head of state substantive motion? Secondly, Mr. Speaker, to say that you have broken a dream, you have to give us the specific dream that has been broken, Mr. Speaker. What was the dream of the fisherman that you said? Was he expecting to get 10 kilograms or what? And how was that dream broken? How is Ruto in it? Mr. Speaker, I think the Honorable Senator from Migori must, tone down, come to the mode of debate and move away from the politics so that we can hear, because we actually want to encourage you in your growth, by the way, Senator Eddie. We have a lot of respect for you, but don't veer off into the politics. Stick to the issue so that we can hear you, Mr. Speaker. Is he in order?
Senator Eddie, when you were making your submission, you referred to Ruto. Is your point against Ruto as a person or Ruto the president? Because you do not refer to him as the president.
Mr. Speaker, I did refer to President Ruto, and I'm addressing the presidential speech. Is that okay? Can I conclude?
On the point of order raised by Senator Mungatana, although I'm not sure if it actually needs substantiating. But I think at this point, I will allow you to finish your submission.
Mr. Speaker,
you only have 2 minutes.
I have no problem responding to this in the context of this speech. The speech includes the president's investment on what we call ASLA funds. The reason why I say there are broken dreams that are suffering today, Mr. Speaker, for you to qualify for ASLA fund as a border person, you can only get up to 1,000 bob. And for you to qualify for bigger chunks of money, Mr. Speaker, for borders in this country, for even them to get 4,000, it takes them about an average of 7 months to qualify for that. As I speak to you, Senator of Tana River, the borders when Uhuru Kenyatta was living here, was leaving office, TVS model of border that is commonly used in this country was going for 128,000 Kenya shillings. Right now, it is going for 168,000 Kenya shillings in the market. Go and check. Now, for borders to be able to get that border, they are required to give 20,000 to what to credit, and then another 40,000 for processing of different things. The remaining is all debt. That means that border needs a debt of 150,000, my brother, Senator Mungatana. If in ASLA fund, this border person can only borrow 1,000, how is this person's dream possible? It's not possible.
Your time is up. Your time is up. We added your time. We did. We've been stopping your clock, and I actually added you 1 more minute. Oh, 2 minutes to conclude.
So 2 minutes to conclude. Yeah. So what I was saying, my brothers and sisters, is that even hustler funds today, the biggest borrowing place for hustlers in this country is no longer the hustler fund. It is the Mutua kiosk, because in the morning they have to borrow to consume. They go in the morning to borrow for mayai. They go in the morning to borrow and write in that book, Mama wa kiosk, give me sugar, give me maziwa. You see, this is the endless problem that we have. If you're going to have a hustler fund, make it possible for people to borrow for assets that can allow them to do business. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, we have got what I would call personally housing tax. Mr. Speaker, for these hustlers, our mothers in the villages, our people in Kibera, our people in Madare, for them, their pension scheme has never been the issue of being able to keep on putting money so that they buy houses. Their pension scheme is their children. These mothers and these men always educate their children so that when their children get education, they can buy them a house. In fact, there are a number of people in this house who today are buying their parents' houses, including me. I'm building my father's house today. If you make it impossible for me to do business in this country, impossible for me to borrow, impossible for me to survive, I cannot be able to take my kid to school as a mother in Kibera. I cannot be able to take my kid to school as a person in Madare. You make it impossible for me to dream. You make it impossible for me to have hope in this country. Please go back to the basics that you promised on the hustler economy and make it possible for hustlers to thrive in this country. Otherwise, we continue talking about these big dreams, and the president continues using 500 million for travels everywhere, money that could be used to give hustlers to buy borders, money that could be used to give hustlers to buy kokoteni, money that could be used to give hustlers money to be able to buy washing machines and be able to build their dreams.
What is your point of order, Senator Mungatana?
Is the honorable senator from Migori in order to insinuate that President Ruto is spending 500 million on travels when we went to Kirwa in what the place is called, in Kwale, Ukwiru in Kwale. And because of the negotiations that were done, the whole project of electrification was 1.2 billion, Mr. Speaker, and the government of Kenya only contributed 56 million. Is he in order to say that usage of these travels is a waste of money? Is he in order to insinuate that? He can't answer. His time is over, Mr. Speaker.
No, Senator Eddy, you don't have to answer. That is your opinion. You might take a seat. Senator Wamatinga Wahome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. Indeed, we did listen to the presidential speech. It is quite astonishing, Mr. Speaker, that some senators who were supposed to have sat there and listened to the presidential speech, it's either the ears had taken leave or they are suffering from a selective amnesia. Mr. Speaker, sir, the president did pronounce himself quite clearly that the Hustler Fund is being stocked up so that we can even move to asset financing. Mr. Speaker, sir, the president gave an example of a tuk-tuk rider in Mombasa, whom he had personally spoken to, and who expressed his desire to have the Hustler Fund modified in a way that it can accommodate asset financing. Mr. Speaker, sir, when you listen to senators here, Mr. Speaker, make comment and allude to the fact that it should move to that direction, it is either, Mr. Speaker, they were not pleasant or they are suffering from selective amnesia. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is not lost to us that the president did pronounce himself to the policies, to the measurements, and to the adjustments that have taken place in the agricultural sector. Mr. Speaker, sir, you might hear one senator speak about missing fertilizer, but the problem is, Mr. Speaker, some of these senators speaking here, they never go home, so they will never know what is available at home. Mr. Speaker, sir, we were in Turkana, yes. We went to Katilu Irrigation Project, yes. And we did speak to National Irrigation Authority, and they did indicate, yes, this fertilizer will be made available to the farmers in Turkana. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to confirm to you that after the structural adjustment programs of the 1980s that ensured that destroyed the agricultural sector in Kenya, the president and his cabinet is on the right path to restoring this. Just the other day, Mr. Speaker, sir, after having toiled for so long to change the plight of coffee farmers, we were able to introduce a pricing and a kind of advance advance of 300 shillings, something that has remained elusive for the last 20 years, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have seen that the government, in its effort to reform the coffee sector, the agricultural sector, has not only introduced measures. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the Agricultural Committee in which I sit in, we have 9 bills, Mr. Speaker, 9 bills, all of them concerning reforms in the agricultural sector. Mr. Speaker, sir, what has been lacking in this country is the political goodwill to make changes that will benefit Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, sir, in this regime, and I would want to quote the words of the president, it is possible for us to change the fate of Kenyans and especially the farmers in our lifetime. Mr. Speaker, sir, In just under 1 year, Mr. Speaker, the current regime, the Kenya Kwanza government, has been able to employ over 56,000 teachers, Mr. Speaker, sir. This has never happened in the history of this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, we saw the standardization, the introduction of ICT hubs in all ward levels in this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is going to be a major milestone, a major achievement. And it is quite interesting that the president has been able, Mr. Speaker, sir, to ensure that we have a constant and constant design for all the ICTs hub so that we can have uniformity, we can have control of...
Senator Eddy. What is your point of order, Senator Eddy?
Mr. Speaker, I stand on this point of order number 105 because I've been following keenly the recruitment of teachers in this country, with the latest being 30,000 recruitments. Is it in order for the senator of Nyeri to mislead this house that the president has employed over 56,000 teachers, Mr. Speaker? And in any case, perhaps it should take the courage of even telling us those 56,000 teachers, Mr. Speaker, which counties are they from? Which tribes are they from? Because when you talk about employment of people in this country, for young people who cannot be able to make money in this country, Mr. Speaker, these are the opportunities that they get. He should tell us what is the breakdown if he truly knows that this has been a fair game, Mr. Speaker. And let him not mislead the house that is over 56,000, Mr. Speaker.
Senator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The figures and the data can be accessed through the website of Teachers Service Commission. Mr. Speaker, sir, just like those senators claiming that fertilizers have not gotten their county because they never get to go to their counties. And Mr. Speaker, sir, because of our generosity, we as senators, the senior senators, have come together and have agreed. Those senators who are struggling to get landing in their homes because of the lack of spouses, we are going to arrange for them, they get the spouses so that they can be able to go back home and they can be able to tell this house what is happening back home. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is in the TSC. I do not need to do any research, Mr. Speaker. I do not need to.
Senator Wahome, order before I give you a point of order. Senator Wahome, Senator Eddy stood on a point of order to request that you substantiate the figure of numbers of teachers that were employed. Are you going to be able to table that to the floor of the House?
Mr. Speaker, sir, that is general knowledge. I would be more than happy to table broken down into how many have been recruited each and every county. But Mr. Speaker, sir, we must say it again and again.
Senator
Let
Wahome.
us fellow senators take time when we have recess to go back home so that we really know what is happening there. Mr. Speaker, sir, those who've come and gotten houses in near Nairobi, and they only go after the election, and the only thing they can do is throw stones and demonstrate. Mr.
Eddy, I think Senator Mumo was before you. Okay. Senator Eddy, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I am raising understanding order number 101. 4. No senator shall impute improper motive to any other senator or to a member of the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, when I stood in front of this house, I think I was the most disrupted by point of orders from the majority side. But at no point did I impute any improper motive on any senators, because we are honorable members, because I know the struggles we go through to be elected or senated to be in this house, because I know our commitment to the people of Kenya and to our constituents. Mr. Speaker, every single weekend, I go to my constituency, driving almost 600 kilometers, all the way to Masangora and Kuria, Mr. Speaker, to go and see my people, to go and talk to my people, to go and listen to their problems. Is it in order for a senior senator who also purports to be an engineer, Mr. Speaker, even if he's an engineer of making phones, he's an engineer, Mr. Speaker? Is it in order, Mr. Speaker, for him to impute that I don't go to my constituency, or even a member of any other part of this county, Mr. Speaker, not going to their constituency, Mr. Speaker? This is not fair, Mr. Speaker, and Mr. Speaker, you must restrict him to the debate and withdraw and apologize to me personally and to all other senators that he has been imputing this motive on.
Senator Muma, what is your point of order?
Honorable Speaker, my point of order is on Standing Order 105. You did ask the Speaker to actually undertake to substantiate the information as provided. But what he's doing is referring us to a website. Can you call him to order? Secondly, Mr. Speaker, is he in order to imply that one has to be married in order to be in this house?
Senator Wahome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wahome, before you proceed,
Yes.
are you going to withdraw and apologize your statement on senators not going to their constituencies? And also on the point of order where you referred to senators who do not have spouses, that you shall assist them in providing them.
Speaker, sir, I'm an African, and I think it is a duty of the elders to be able to assist the younger ones who are not able to get spouses. I'll be doing my African duty. Therefore, I do not need to apologize on that one. I think I'll be doing.
What is your point of order, Senator Eddy?
Mr. Speaker, I am speaking as a youth in this country, okay? Still under Standing Order number 101. This house, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, must stop being ageist. This house, Mr. Speaker, must stop being chauvinistic. This house, Mr. Speaker, must stop looking at people of disability as not enough. This is why senators like Wamatinga, Mr. Speaker, was disparaging a woman governor the other day here, because constantly you see this house as a house of seniors, as a house of superiors, as a house of certain caliber of people. We are here by right, and the young people of this country elected me, married or not, they elected me to belong to this house. You're not going to continue with this ageist, this chauvinistic, this misogynistic kind of attitude in this house. And Mr. Speaker, on this, I don't need his apology, because we are young people of this country and we belong here and we're going to contribute to this debate, whether elected or not. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Senator.
The role of an African elder still remains standing. Mr. Speaker, sir, why the African society has been over years been known to move upright, it's because before even the coming of the modern education, we were passing our knowledge orally from one generation to the next one. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is an open secret that many communities, including in Kenya, the guidance of the elders to the younger ones cannot be equated to anything, Mr. Speaker. There's nothing to withdraw, that there is nothing to apologize. It's the setup of Africans. That's what makes us this very, very strong, even in the adversity that we confront as a continent. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, sir, what we are discussing today is the presidential speech. Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, through the Speaker.
Senator Asige, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I would really encourage, and I'm quite disappointed with the line of debate that is being taken right now, because it has nothing to do with the address. We're supposed to be talking about the state of the nation, not the state of single or married young people in Kenya. That is another debate for another day. And I am standing on a 101. I feel extremely offended because this line of language is continuing, and I would urge you, Speaker, kindly, if you could just rule if the senator is in order to continue in this manner, because it is very offensive, not just to people in this house, but people who are listening. And even if it's his opinion, Speaker, that the elders are here to do 1, 2, or 3, that has nothing to do with the state of the nation address. So kindly rule him out of order.
Senator Wahome, I would urge you to continue with your submission on the state of the nation and avoid attracting too much points of orders.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm well guided. Some things will never change no matter how much or how little you say them. Mr. Speaker, sir,
proceed with your submission.
To the state of the nation. Going back to the State of the Nation, Mr. Speaker, sir, I was very impressed that the president did outline the number of Kenyans that he called. A president calling a farmer in Trans Nzoia, the president calling a Boda Boda rider in Mombasa. Mr. Speaker, this is a clear demonstration that the president of this country cares about the Kenyans, that he minds going collecting views of Kenyans, and most importantly, looking at how they would want things done. Mr. Speaker, sir, whoever cared to listen to the speech of the president heard and is aware that he has a plan for this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, he outlined a loan that was taken the Eurobond, $200 billion, that everybody thought that Kenya would not be able to pay. He outlined that he's going to be able, the country is going to be able to honor that before time. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a commitment that the president, in his capacity as the executive head of in this country, is committed to honor for international obligations, is committed to see that the economy of Kenya is in the path of recovery, but most importantly, Mr. Speaker, that he is prepared to take everybody on board towards this path of recovery. What other people would not want to hear, Mr. Speaker, sir? And out what a saying that comes from my community. When somebody does not like you, even when you're in a swimming pool, he'll tell you you're blowing a lot of dust. Mr. Speaker, sir, we know the commitment of the president from maintaining this economy. We know the commitment of the president to guide the farmers towards the path of recovery. We know the commitment of the president to ensure that the dignity of Kenyans is restored, not by making them beggars, Mr. Speaker, sir, but by ensuring that they join hands into the economic path of recovery. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is not an open secret that we can recover and we will recover because the president has the utmost political goodwill to ensure that this country is in the path of recovery. As I sit down, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would urge my colleagues to look at it openly. It does not matter. 2027 is coming. You'll challenge us on what we've been able to perform. 2032 is coming, Mr. Speaker. They'll challenge us in terms of what we've been able to achieve. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I sit down, I want to tell my fellow senators, let us close ranks. Let us agree that it is our obligation to move this country forward. Eddie, the senator from Migori, he is my brother, my younger brother. It is my obligation, Mr. Speaker, sir, to guide him into the right path. And Mr. Speaker, sir, if I step on the long toes, it is not because I don't like him. It is because I like him so much. That is why I'll repeatedly tell him again and again.
Senator Beatrice Akinyi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. As I rise to contribute to the president's speech, I want to remind Senator, my senior Senator Wamatinga, that just yesterday in the morning, I came from Homa Bay County. And that is a demonstration that not only the elected senators go back to their constituents, but all as leaders in the Senate go back to our constituencies and we are able to pick up issues from there. And Honorable Speaker, as I start my presentation, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to start on the note that the cost of living continues to escalate, and just to inform all of us that Kenyans are stretched to the limit and they keep on getting stretched, and this must be attended to. Just this morning, Honorable Speaker, I attended to Mass, and in that Mass, Honorable Speaker, there was a wise reading from the
Senator
Book of
Boni
Wisdom.
Kalwale, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, Senator Beatrice has informed the House that every weekend she goes back to her county. Her county. Mr. Speaker, Senator Beatrice is a nominated senator. Can she tell us, standing order number 105, when we can't be repeating the obvious, can she clarify which county she represents in this Senate?
Senator Boni Kalwale, Senator Boni Kalwale, with all due respect, you're a senior member, and I would never want to correct you. But Senator Beatrice Akinyi comes from a county, whether if she's nominated or not. So she was referring to her home county. That's what she said. She said she came yesterday from her home county. So I overruled that. You can Proceed, Senator Beatrice.
Us continue to hear things they want to hear when others speak.
Point of order on who? Beatrice just started speaking with 2 words. Okay, what's your point of order, Senator Eddy?
Mr. Speaker, you know how much I respect your chair. And you know how much I've been passionate about some of the rulings that you make. And my intention has never been, and will never be, and it's not even now, going to question your ruling. But Mr. Speaker, standing order number 121, the goes on knowingly raising a false point of order. One, and then standing order number 122, further strengthens that point of order. C, says false to declare personal interest in some matters and persistently making serious allegations, and then goes all the way to 122J. Mr. Speaker, the senator for Kakamega is constantly raising frivolous point of orders, Mr. Speaker. And this House, Mr. Speaker, has declared on his standing orders that this constitutes grossly disorderly conduct. Mr. Speaker, I wonder why Senator Boni Alwale is not thrown out of this House for grossly being disorderly, Mr. Speaker. Because you cannot stand on a point of order to disparage nominated members and even question them, in almost declaring them countyless, stateless, because under Article 6 of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker, under Article 6 of our Constitution, this country is divided into counties. The moment you have declared a member of this House countyless, you are declaring them stateless, Mr. Speaker. Is this in order, Mr. Speaker, in this House? How are we degenerating to something else, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, I beseech you that today, Mr. Boni Alwale, Senator of Kakamega, is not in his best element. He is probably under the affluence of something else. Mr. Speaker, please find him disorderly and throw him out of this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Beatrice, one moment. Senator Eddy, as much as you started your statement very well by saying you respect the chair, I also respect you, Senator Eddy. But on this particular point of order that you've just lamented here today, you are the one who's actually out of order. And I could actually find you grossly out of order, because I had already made a ruling on the point of order that Senator Boni Kalwale, and I had closed that matter. And by you standing on the same point of order, you are actually trying to reopen a matter which has already been ruled on. So I caution you, Senator Eddy. Senator Beatrice, you may proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also request Senator Eddy to bear with Senior Senator Boni Alwale. Remember, by his own admission yesterday, he was appalled that for the first time he was heckled in his village. So that must have caused him a bit of discomfort. But Honorable Speaker, to also put it straight to this House, I come from a ward called Kosewe, Kanyamwa Kosewe ward, in a sub-county called Ndewa sub-county, right in Homa Bay County. And that record about me is not about to change, Honorable Speaker. So when I go to Homa Bay County as my home county, I'm rightly there. But Honorable Speaker, I'm also an officially a delegate of Homa Bay County, as spelled out and written and recorded by Senator Moses Otieno Kajwang. So Honorable Speaker, as I begin to make my contribution to the presidential speech, this morning, Honorable Speaker, I was in Mass, and in that there was a reading from the Book of Wisdom. And it said, "Listen, O kings, that you may learn wisdom." And Honorable Speaker, one wise man I like listening to often says that if you want to succeed, listen to the don't listen to the people with the answers. Listen to the people with the questions. And Honorable Speaker, These are part of my contribution, is part of the people with the questions. Honorable Speaker, as I contribute to the President's speech, I would like that the head of state takes note of the following items in my checklist. Honorable Speaker, you notice that we've had a countrywide power outage. The longest blackout that happened in this county was in August this year for over 20 hours, Honorable Speaker. And this points to the economy, and this points to the image that as a county we paint out. Just last Saturday, Honorable Speaker, there was another blackout from 8 p.m. till latest midnight. Honorable Speaker, we have had such national power blackouts in the last few months, and this must be taken care of, Honorable Speaker, because power points to our economy, and as I've said, it also points to the image. Something but rattles me, Honorable Speaker, when we talk about this national power blackout. Does it point to a planning problem, to a lack of planning, or what is it trying to show? Honorable Speaker, just today, there's going to be a treaty of the European Union and the Organization of African, Caribbean, and the Pacific States in Brussels. And our state, Kenya, is supposed to be a signatory to this treaty. Honorable Speaker, this country holds the family in highest esteem. The family is the natural unit of society that must be protected by both the society and the state, Honorable Speaker. But in this treaty that Kenya is supposed to be signing today, all the way in Brussels, it has connotations of sexual and reproductive health rights that include, Honorable Speaker, abortion. It includes homosexuality. It includes issues of sex work. And Honorable Speaker, it is a pity that if this is signed, children are going to be left to decide their sex. Honorable Speaker, children biologically when they are born, and Senator Alwala is a gynecologist, we all know that the sex of a child is determined physically at birth. But there is this proposition that children should be left without determining their sex, without spelling out their sex, so that in future as they grow up, they have a choice to decide whether they are female or male. And today, as I speak, this treaty is supposed to be signed in Brussels. Honorable Speaker, in guiding the family, in protecting our family values, these are some of the issues that the head of state and the leadership of our country should look into. Honorable Speaker, in the President's speech, there was also the issue of employment, and all of us know the state of unemployment that there is in the country. There was reference to inclusivity.
Senator Peters, when this debate resumes, you'll have a balance of 7 minutes. And on next Wednesday, we will prioritize the question and answers to be addressed to CS Murkomen. I think that will be next week, Wednesday morning. Honorable Senators, it is now 1 p.m., time to adjourn the Senate. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until today, Wednesday, 15th November, 2023 at 2:30 p.m.